Welcome to Living Web Farms Tools Workshop. Living Web Farms is a 501c3 nonprofit which is dedicated to giving people tools that are pathways to the future. And of course, on our pathways to the future, we need tools that are in the present. And those tools break and get dull. And we have Barron Brown and Larry Cooper here to talk to us about tools, how to use them, what their favorite tools are, how to keep them sharp, how to replace those handles, how to maintain them. And that is the purpose of this workshop. And I welcome you to it.
So we thought we'd start with scythes because the weather around here can get pretty crazy. And so we're going to start talking about scythe. And Larry has his favorite scythe, and I've got my favorite scythe.
We have the quintessential collection of scythes, actually. This is fantastic. We've got this one here. We were just trying to guess its age. Actually, guess its weight would even be a bit 80 pounds, way too much. This is a great old tool. This is just a museum piece here. This is so. If this design weren't such a wall hanger, it would just be so nice to use. But you'll see in just the difference in this one and the blade, the style it uses, this type blade, is hugely different. But this is the classic scythe you think of. The modern scythe blade has three curves. It has the classic Grim Reaper curve to make it look scary. This one also has the more modern version of this blade. See, it has the same essential curve. It also has a curve. Yeah, also has a curve. As you can see, this way has a bit of a rocker, like a ski tip on it, and it also has a belly curve to it, like this. So this one is primarily just flat. The tang up here also is at a much different angle. I tell people who are shopping for a scythe, if you're looking for one, make sure all the angles line up, because you want to make sure when this is on the ground, it has a sweet spot. And I'm saying the sweet spot on that blade is right there. That's where everything is not moving when you touch it. When you poke it over here, that one is telling me its sweet spot is right there. That's the place where you want that to be on the ground the whole time that you're actually using the piece. This one is flat all the way across. And you find that this type of blade tends to poke into the lumps in the soil more readily than this one just rides over rocks and various humps in the soil, molehills, whatever. But this type of thing has about a 22.5 or something degree tang on it. These are fairly well flat.
This is like 10 or 11 degrees.
Yeah, just
I mean,
barely.
I could see maybe in the Midwest if you got a perfectly flat prairie, possibly using that, but I find these very difficult to use.
They are. They absolutely are.
But they look cool.
Oh yeah, they're beautiful tools. They're also harvesting baskets that go on those things, those big, they call them turkey wings, those big.
Or some people call them a grain cradle, and that just sticks out from here.
Yeah.
So you basically scythe through, and the grain all just lays in the cradle, and then you can just deposit it down so someone can walk behind you and shuck it up.
Yep.
But that's, in this society, we don't do that.
Yeah.
And of course that also depends, if people are using scythes all day long, and for me, I use scythes probably once a week maybe. I'm not using them all day long.
I mowed a 1/4 acre this morning before I came, in fact. This blade is this type blade. This is called a garden type blade. With it's a general purpose blade. Use them a lot around trimming around trees and trimming around whatever, with more uplift on it. The blades that are flatter here, we call those more of a hay blade when you're working in better hay fields. But this and also the length of the blade is something that's also very important. The other type of blade is a bush blade, and a bush blade is just a lot shorter and a lot heavier steel. The thickness of it is considerably heavier gauge.
And to me, I'll take down trees the size of my pinky with these with no problem.
Yeah, or bigger.
Or even bigger, yeah.
Pinky.
Just if you got a field that hadn't been mowed in a few years, this is a great blade because you can just go through and whack it down.
Yeah.
And also you'll notice another thing. See how much taller Larry's is than mine? And Larry's taller than I am. So you want to size your scythe to fit your own body. so that you're not crunched over, so you're in a totally natural stance. And when we get out in the field, we'll show you how to orient your body for efficient mowing.
Yeah. The classic fit for the scythe was to have the grip at approximately at your hip pivot bone right here. So the grip would be about there. This is the classic fit. And you want your other grip to be about a cubit up. We finally get to use that weird biblical measurement, the cubit, but you want it to be about there. And that gets you in a position where your arms aren't too spread out to put excess strain on your shoulder joints. If your hands are too spread out like this, that makes it less efficient. Also, in the style of mowing that I teach, the body is used just beautifully, just very efficiently, very effectively. This is just one of those tools that it just keeps getting better as we continue to use it. More people start to understand it. It's amazing the comeback that this tool has made, and just since the time I've been around it. But I started scything back in, I think, about 2005 when my weed eater broke. And I said, I hate this thing. I cannot stand the thought of spending another $200 on another weed eater. It was a great tool. It lasted a long time, but I thought, I just don't want to spend money on that anymore. And buying that line, and you never have the little two-stroke mix, and it's just, so I said, how did we do this prior to the invention of the gasoline engine? I said, surely we did something. And at the time I was living in Wisconsin, I had about an acre of grass I had to keep open around my house for prairie fire. And we once got engulfed in a prairie fire, and it burned about 40 acres around us. We had 26 fire vehicles in our yard, and
wow.
It stopped about
That
6 feet.
Exciting.
It stopped about 6 feet from the propane tank. Yeah, they got there just in time. It was great. But anyway, so the fit basically puts the blade at the proper orientation to get the grass. If your blade is too low, it shovels in. If it's too high, it pushes the grass over. So you want your snath, the wooden part of the tool is called a snath, and the blade together make the scythe. But you want those two factors to equal to the point where that blade hovers somewhere with that edge, with you standing comfortably, with that edge about a ½ inch off the ground. That lets you stand upright and mow very, very effectively. But your body position using a scythe is something about like you'd be riding a mountain bike. You want to be just slightly cocked forward, just a slight bend at the knee, feet a little about shoulder width apart. And we'll go out and mow some grass here in a minute so you can see that.
Maybe we should do that.
Now this is a snath that I actually make. This is one that Barron made.
This is one I made. This has got a date of '94 on it.
Yeah.
I started using these in the '80s, and I guess in the early '90s I got tired of the snath I had and built one because I found a knot in a piece of wood, so it flows around, the wood grain flows around. But that's something you're not going to find that commercially.
Too bad.
Yeah, it's probably
bad.
too much work for them to select it out. And it looks like yours is ash.
Yep, that's
and
ash,
this is,
sawed ash.
This is locust, which I split out, and you'll see a lot of the tool handles that I made on other tools. I've also used locust, and it's just because it's a good available wood we have around here.
Yep.
But we do have ash too. I try to always use wherever I am the best local woods that I can. Just because I think it's good to use what's available.
Oh yeah.
Within your context.
It's certainly the way it's always been done.
Yeah.
The angles you can't control on a scythe so much are the angle of all of this stuff here, the angle of the tang, which is this angle relative to that angle, which I said was somewhere around 22 degrees. They vary up to 45. So to find a snath and a blade that have complementing angles is the way.
And I was just let's point this straight towards the camera, or I'm gonna point this away, and you put yours next to it, so you can see how much more extreme it is on the modern scythe. And as I understand it, these were designed in Austria. They started in the late early 1900s for this particular style, because Austria, is I guess a mountainous place, and they're still doing a lot of handwork.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And whereas in this country, because of all our power machinery, basically we quit evolving new grass cutting tools. They're still working on.
The company that makes this blade has actually been in business since 1540. Yeah, yeah. We lost our last blade manufacturing in this country in '58. Yeah, so we just quit making them. But that was basically what they made there.
What's the name of the company, Larry?
Schreckenfuchs in Austria.
And the scythe is a totally different company.
I make the scythe myself.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, it's made by my company. It's toolingtherevolution.com. Yeah. So yeah, these are made in North Carolina and in Wisconsin. So, but I'm making those for mass market type thing.
Could you repeat again the distance of the snap height from wet to wet?
The traditional fit was this handle, the lower grip it's called, and the upper grip. Lower grip is right here by your greater trochanter, your hip pivot, and then is about a cubit up. So it's about cubit is your elbow to the tip of your fingers.
Okay.
It can be a little more, a little less.
And I personally like it a little more, and you notice mine is more than a cubit
Yeah.
by a whole 4 or 5 inches.
Yeah,
And I find it very comfortable to use, but I used the commercial version of this for probably 6 years before I decided to redesign it for my own body to make it much easier.
Mm-hmm.
I took it out of the box and said, okay, but I realized that, or I felt I could do better.
Mm-hmm. And it cuts grass great. I'm sure.
I'm amazed at how much.
Or you
I
would have
can do
changed
cut.
something.
Yeah, and I can't deal with weed eaters at all. So
Yeah.
So Larry, yours is adjustable, so you like one couple, because you have one and adjust it to make what.
Or one person. I also use one that's a little longer than this one. Depending on the chore. If I'm on that ditch bank over there, I want this to be shorter. If I'm out cutting wheat, I can cut from here all the way to there, which is about 10 feet. So when I cut about a 4-inch swath out of a 10-foot diameter circle. And the longer this is, the more I can cut. So I can actually back these out when I'm cutting in a real nice wheat field, a real nice, hay field, and just really stretch out. The taller you are, the longer your arms are, the longer the scythe is, the more you can mow, and with each pass.
And my place is very mountainous, very lumpy, rocks everywhere.
Yep.
So mine is much shorter than his for that reason too, and
Yep.
that's probably why I wanted this distance here to have more control to move it around. Because
Sure.
if I suddenly see a rock midpoint, I don't want to mess up my blade.
Right.
So I want to be able to stop, and I find that by having this longer length, I have more leverage to move it around.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's personal fit too.
Yeah.
It's all you find a place. And these grips, I make them to where you can rotate that to fit your exact spot, and then set a little screw in there to hold that exactly in its place. But it's so individual. There's so much talk in the scythe community now about this is right and this is right and this is right. And you hand somebody a scythe and say go, and everybody starts doing something wrong immediately. But it's right for them until they learn. So that's why I try to teach people what I've discovered about the scythe over the years. So and that's what we'll do here momentarily.
And also, to me, what's right is something where you can keep going for an hour or 2 or 3.
That's the whole thing.
And if
it's
you,
a pace thing.
If you work for 5 minutes, anyone can work for 5 minutes, but you got to just be able to go for a long period of time,
Right.
and get a good sized field cut down.
Sure.
Because it's not worth it. I mean, yeah. If you just so that to me is another really important consideration.
Yep, it's an endurance thing for sure. You start scything ideally before the sun gets on the grass, and stop by noon. Because when the sun gets up, the moisture starts leaving the grass, it gets less easy to cut. There's less water in it because it's starting to evaporate out. That means less weight, so when you hit it, there's less resistance, and it's more easy to push over.
Pushes over, yeah. Wet grass is definitely, or
yeah.
damp morning grass is the time to cut.
The
This is the wrong time of day to cut.
May morning fescue. Oh God, just nothing is good.
And when I was using this, I was
Clover.
using this this morning when everything was wet.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can still see a little grass stuck to the wood.
Sharp is the key. that sharpening a scythe, if it's not sharp, it will wear you out. And the other thing about that's really crucial with the fitting of the scythe, you can't really control, once the scythe is made, those angles all are X, and the blade is made and that angle is X, you can't change any of that. The only other thing that changes in the scythe is what's called a hafting angle. And the hafting angle is this angle of the blade here. And its angle is adjustable back here. It's got these 2 screws on the collar. You loosen those, that squeezes it down, and you place it where it's supposed to go.
And
Yeah.
I just wanted to show you historically, they had all these little points that you could stick the little finger on the scythe blade in.
Right.
So you could change this hafting angles by just loosening this little saddle around here.
So it's always been there. But the deal with the scythe is you don't want to cut sideways with it. The scythe cuts as you would slice a tomato. You don't hack a tomato, you shear a tomato, you drift a knife through it. You do the same with the scythe. The blade is already pointing the way it wants to go. The tail should always just follow that point. And it's in that curve, and we'll find some grass and get in it and show you how all this comes
I
together.
guess a
Where-
good way to. You're saying this is right to cut.
Well, yeah, no, he said he wanted to find some grass, so we can do the rye over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just the clover over there, this ditch bank, or we'll want to show the various techniques for sure.
And what I was going to say is you just want to hit it at a very slight angle, ideally.
Yep.
You know, as you're swinging through, you just want it to be hitting it. You know, rather than you don't want it straight on because it wouldn't cut anything.
Right.
But you
yeah,
want
it's
it to
got
be just a little bit of an
Yep.
angle, so as it's cutting, you know, this will be the path, and that
Yep.
gives it a long chance to slide along the blade and slice it.
exactly. Yeah, the scythe cuts in shear.
Is this a homemade scythe stone?
Oh, that's a doppelbock. That's a really hard stone.
Did you want to talk about sharpening before you're over there? Or?
Yeah, we'll sharpen this one up. Keep a stone in water. The stone, actually these stones are, this particular stone is it has a sacrificial bit that comes off in slurry when you sharpen. So when I sharpen, I use a stroke where I pull down, and this rib is essentially a guide for that stone. The stone is not curved here accidentally. That's the angle that stone is supposed to work on that blade. So you pull down and sweep. You want to keep your hand up here so that you're not chasing the blade around. I run my hand right up here with the stone. Not bearing down very hard on it at all. It's more of a polish. You should never let the blade actually get dull. And that's about it. And you
Now,
do that very often.
every 5 minutes or so.
As often as
But
you
it
need
depends
to.
on the grass. But grass has a lot of embodied silica in it, which
Yeah.
will dull your blades out really quickly.
Yeah, yeah. I was teaching a class up in Michigan a few years ago. It hadn't rained for 6 weeks. And the day before the class, it rained 1.5 inches in some really sandy soil. So it was like I was cutting through sandblasting the blade, essentially. It was just, it's like I cut 2 or 3 swings, it was dull. I had to sharpen again. It was terrible. But yeah, there's some abrasion in the grass. That's why it's always better to cut it in the morning. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the different blades, I like to get a beginner on a shorter blade. The longer blades have a tremendous amount of cutting power. This is a 60 centimeter blade, the short one. This is an 85 centimeter blade. And the tip of the blade really just guides the thing into the grass. The cutting action happens during this last bit of the blade here, which on this one is really huge. This is a hard blade to handle for a beginner, and the flatter blades are even more difficult because they don't have that, they don't ride up. So anybody that wants to try a scythe, I'll start out with the shorter blade. So
Do you peen the blades out at all?
we will.
Okay.
Yeah. Peening is done. The other thing that a lot of people who are new to scything don't realize is that you sharpen the scythe regularly with the stone. You just hone it, you polish that edge. But the real sharpening of the scythe is done with a hammer and a peen. All right? And I've got two to show you. This is a peen here. A hammer has two ends on it, all right? It has essentially this going on. The hammer has a big flat face and it has a narrow rounded peen. Okay, it's called a cross peen hammer. So these are the same on here. Peen, yeah. And P-E-E-N, yeah. So you never use these two together. You may find a reason to, but you normally wouldn't ever have a reason to use these two faces together or these two faces. You'd use these or you'd use this, okay? So if you're using the bottom tool that you have in the stump over there to sharpen, use this end of the hammer, okay? If you're using this one, you'd use this end of the hammer. This broader faced peen is more often used for repairing damaged blades. You could have hit a piece of fence wire and rolled an edge over or something like that. So that's more commonly used for repair. This style here is more commonly used this way for sharpening. And the way that works, it's because we got all this stuff up here. Show that for me out there, Barron. So I would work, so we can just see here. You hold the blade there and you hit here. You work, this has a bit of a crown this way and a crown that way, so you want to work this, and this has a little bit of a crown too. So you want to work just that spot right there. You get the edge of this blade about halfway over this peen, and you hammer that, and you just work your way back down the blade. And that actually draws the metal out and work hardens it. So it's kind of like tempering it. Work hardening happens when you bend a piece of wire and it keeps getting harder and harder and stiffer and stiffer.
How are you supporting that blade?
We'll sit over here on a stump and that's support across the knees.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it just rests
The
on
other
your
thing to
body.
think about is if you were to just continually sharpen it, the blade would get used up very quickly.
Yes.
Whereas if you're pulling the metal out, you get way more metal out of it.
Yeah.
And some tools like pickaxes were traditionally also sharpened that way, where you heat them up and draw them out.
Mm-hmm. This is all done cold. This was heated and tempered, heat treated in its,
Yeah.
in its early.
Depends on the tool, but on
Yeah.
these, yeah.
Yeah, but these are a type of steel that can be work hardened like that and have all the characteristics, the desirable characteristics when it's done. So, I won't go into that peening right now unless, we want to do the peening or
Well, I'd say we should go out and cut some grass.
go cut some grass. Start cutting some grass. This is my missing stone. I'm glad to have it back.
And you mind if I use your stone?
Go right ahead.
All right.
See that? It just cuts that so easily. There's no effort involved at all. It's just so sharp it just can't not cut. That's the cutting angle that'll want to travel in. And the motion, you want to set yourself to where you just move your body slightly side to side, and it's just a rotational thing this way. And you start scything by doing shorter cuts. Take little tiny steps forward, just little stutter steps, and just step up. You see it cuts just a bit of grass at a time. The main thing I see people doing when they begin is people want to swing it like a golf club or a hockey stick. And that's getting it short in the middle and you're cutting it high on the sides. And it's also trying to push the grass over. You see these little weed heads here that won't cut this way, but they'll cut easy that way. Okay? So that's essentially how the thing works. You want to cut using this circular stroke. Scythe starts at the right hip, finishes left hand, left hip. Follow it around this way. That keeps you from wanting to bring it up this way, which is another common thing. People will switch, and that just pushes the grass over as you get there. But you want to just keep that blade on the ground both directions. Little step, little step. Just slowly progress forward, step, like so. And anybody that wants to try it on grass that's already been cut. Everybody wants to see grass flying and rabbits running.
This is way more challenging.
Yeah, this is challenging, but the motion is the other thing.
And just twisting your hips. I mean, that's the most important
It's
thing.
just you gotta
think of the dance like you're doing the twist. I mean,
yeah.
that's what I
I
tell
see people so often just want to do this and
see, then
put it
you're
all
gonna
in
get
the
your arms
arms.
so tired out. But if you
Yeah.
get your whole body moving,
Yeah.
you know.
So actually, you're right-handed, right?
Yes.
And I'm left-handed. And if you
We
look
use
at
the
the way
same
he's
tool.
gripping it, I'm gripping it with the right-hand grip because it's hard to get left-handed tools. And I've got 2 other right-handed members of the family, so I just made this to fit my wife and my daughter also. You know, because there's no reason for us to have a second size.
Right.
I mean, we could, but, you know.
And due to the fact that there are so few left-handed, opposite-sided blades, the quality is
That's another thing.
the quality
Getting another
is just
blade,
yeah,
which points out the other way.
yeah.
You know, they're all right-handed blades. You just get
But the lower arm, so regardless of which arm
Right.
which kind of
The lower grip.
Yeah.
these are both right-handed.
Basically stays sort of relaxed but straight. It
Yep.
doesn't change its position.
I describe I describe the right hand's job is to hold the scythe on the ground.
Right.
That's all it's just it's a counterweight. That's mostly what it does. And you want that, the body puts the energy this way into the scythe, right? You got enough weight here doing the pulling. All you got to do is hang on to it. And the right hand revectors it and pushes it around, okay? So I've got that force coming this way, I revector it and make it go that way. That's what the right hand does. That'll become more apparent when you see it working. And when you get to that place yourself, I'm holding this arm straight, I'm pulling it with my torso. I'm not pulling this up with my arm, I'm pulling this with my torso. And I'm working that into that rotation. Working that and vectoring that around, forcing that to go over. Blade stays nice and low and works through the grass. Where's some grass? Let's find some grass. Some real grass.
It's a little bit longer over there. You
Cut
wanna
that
try
stuff. Cut these extension cords and water hose pipes.
Yeah, it's exciting when you get an extension cord. Now, when you're scything, do you try to lay down when it's much taller grass, do you try to lay it down in any particular pattern?
It just all goes in a line.
Okay.
Yeah. It's difficult to cut the short stuff, it's difficult to cut the light stuff, and it's difficult to cut the dry stuff. We've got it all right here. But it's still, most of it's cutting. And you'll miss a piece here and there, it just gets pushed over. You just stop and get it before you press on. It's easier to cut it downhill than it is to push it uphill, particularly if you're working with tall grass, real heavy grass. This isn't bad. When you collect or when you cut it, it collects in a nice windrow this way. The bigger the grass, the nicer the windrow. If you're cutting grass this tall, you just got this mountainous log of grass right behind you. So, or right beside you, rather. So that's hillside cutting, and a shorter snath would be easier to use on hillside for me. This one is not really all that tall and stretched out, but I have a longer one, the snath, but this one is okay for this. If I were going to be doing a lot of this hillside work, I'd lower these handles a bit so I'd have the thing just a little bit closer, so the blade's a little closer to me. Just a little easier to manage on hillside. And on ditch, the ditch stuff is, you know, you got the ideal length for cutting those real steep hillsides like that.
And that's what is, my whole farm is.
Yeah.
45 degrees.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's very different than this.
Yeah.
I think people should try it.
Try it?
You want to?
Sure.
Does someone? I don't think mine's near as sharp as yours.
We can, as yours a grass blade, we can sharpen it. Pretty good. It's not bad. But you can.
I just used it this morning and didn't sharpen it at all before I brought it here.
Yeah.
I realized.
Like this hillside over here. Let's go cut.
Yeah, I mean, this is, of course, this is way more challenging too, because, and I'm doing a much shorter arc than what Larry was doing.
It's what you have to do what you do, depending on your exact situation. There,
yeah, this is
one snath doesn't do it all.
Yeah. Whereas this is extremely comfortable here, and
yeah.
I guess is yours a little bit longer for that.
I can reach across a wider ditch.
Yeah, well, that's true. Does someone else want to try it? This is not the nice rocking motion because it's a very.
Oh, it's choppy. When you're cutting ditches,
choppy. Yeah,
when you're cutting ditches and cliffs and so forth.
Yeah, this is a really big challenge to cut. And probably at this point I would come around to the other side and reach down to get that last bit because it's just not getting cut at all. But it's a challenging spot. Probably should start people out on something a lot flatter than
Oh
this.
yeah, a lot flatter. Is there a spot nearby that
So there's rye over here.
big tall stuff?
Wouldn't that be soft? Because wouldn't that be easier because it's not as soft as regular grass?
It's stalkier
Well, if it's taller,
at this time.
The taller the grass is, you know, the top just kind of stays in place. You can whack off the bottom. When it's really short, it just bends over.
Okay.
And also, as he said in the morning, you really notice the difference. You really want to just cut in the morning. It's also cooler.
Yeah, that's nice. Don't know.
Well, I mean, we could cut this stuff along the edge, stand on the flat part, and cut that.
Oh yeah. So cutting this is kind of like cutting under like a barbed wire fence, which a scythe is great for doing fence lines. You can get right up under stuff. And this big stalky stuff here, this is a grass blade, but that's a nice wet stalk. So that's not like cutting those really difficult woody type things. But when you're cutting, you want to think about what you're cutting and where it's going to go, where it's going to deposit. And if you are cutting back this way, you're going to keep piling stuff in front of yourself as you progress this. Like if I'm coming this way, I'm having to cut back through what I just cut. So I want to think about that and cut from here. And don't worry, I'm not going to, no one will be injured. And like this stuff here that is like a cowlick, it's hard to get sometimes, so you just got to kind of pick at it, like so. A little short, choppier stroke, and those big old things just cut real nicely. And it just keeps depositing back behind me as I progress. Just kind of sidestep, a little choppier stroke. But this is what excels at, is just trimming around a branch. You can't get the tractor so close.
And also,
So here,
as
somebody
you can
else run
see
this
at the
thing.
rate he's moving, imagine using a weed eater for the same thing. It would take you as long or longer to do what he did.
Oh, sure, sure.
And I find it quicker than the weed eater often.
And we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, we would. We'd be wearing earmuffs and we'd be getting carpal tunnel and everything else.
Yeah, I mowed with 4 of us the other day. And you start, when you mow with a group of folks, one person gets a bit ahead and somebody comes in, you know, several feet behind, and the next person comes in, so you progress in echelon.
And you want to kind of overlap so that you're laying your windrow into that, just like 6 inches into that next cut area.
Yeah. You just break through the cut side, and
Yeah.
the next person behind comes and does the same thing. And 4 people cutting 8 or 12 feet at a time, you can just march across the field in no time. You know, 4 people cutting 10 feet each, you're cutting a 40-foot width.
Do you sing as you go?
If you're so motivated, if you have a good voice, I guess.
Yeah.
You take turns like a water slide and then overlap like when you vacuum. And then do you think of those vibrators on your face razors? Do those work like on a larger scale?
Interesting you should mention that. But that's one of the things that really, and it's one of my teaching aids I have in the truck. Here, somebody use this, I'll be right back.
Face razors?
Oh yeah, that's what,
They make
was a-
razors
that- well.
that vibrate and it helps cut the hairs.
they say.
And I also try to plan it where there's going to be a couple days of sun after, because I've got horses and goats, and you know, you let the grass get that tall, and this is perfect hay for them. Just let it dry out for a day or two, and for however long it takes to dry.
We, by the way, are trying not to mow the grass off.
Okay, so Richard, you're a little bit high. You got to be really parallel to the ground. So drop it down. Yeah, drop it down even more, 1/2 inch off the ground, and try to just twist your hips. Just put your hand. Just do a twist. And don't even worry about your arms. Just try twisting your hips.
More of the hip.
Perfect for a scythe. Scythes are perfect for and high up is okay. We still want to mow in the back.
This is the hardest stuff in the world, this little stuff here. Clover does better.
Even that, I haven't cut anything. I've swished
Yeah.
it at least 30 times. And
Okay,
nothing's
I didn't watch. Let's see what you're doing.
okay.
Think about the microbes. Now you're lifting when you
They're
return.
fine.
You don't have to lift that much, but you're taking way too much of a step each time. You really want to just take a little half step.
Yep, that one's
So you're
not your height.
Cutting over.
That was not your height.
You're
That
making
stem
a
should be
huge
just a little
jump
taller on
Yeah,
it.
and spot.
don't need to go that far.
So just imagine you're just floating it over the ground, and you're just doing a little twist with your hips.
All right, let me see
I
that
want
blade.
my money back.
Let's see here. I'm getting a little better cut. I'm getting a feel that that hafting angle is just a little open. It's fine for chopping the heavier stuff, but if that can close down just a little bit, it would probably make a bit of difference there. Yep, just adjust that down, and that'll get it at a better angle. So it's starting to cut. That cut pretty well.
I was like laying it down flatter.
But that'll make an improvement. This is a great rock. Sharpen this blade.
Be happy.
What's that?
Let's peen it.
Oh yeah.
It needs to be drawn. It hadn't been peened in a while, so.
Yeah.
Has anyone
That'll
ever-
probably.
Has anyone ever been at a scythe with a rubber handle so that when you do your twist, it actually builds momentum and flicks like a whip?
You know, there's a certain dynamic to it. Some snaths, and this one's. You said this was locust.
Locust.
Yeah, that's ash, and it's a little more whippy. And I've got one that's hickory, but it's real small diameter. And it's got a really cool dynamic to it.
So
They're all a little bit
locust,
different.
ash, hickory all make great bows.
Yep.
So any bow wood, I always tell
Yeah.
people those are good tool handle woods because they do
Yeah.
have that kind of a little bit of movement to them. And I could shave that down a little bit more. And you can see that I did shave it down for two reasons. One, to make it whippy, but the other just to keep it as light as possible.
Yeah.
Because if you're holding
Yeah.
this thing for a couple hours, you don't want to be just totally beat.
Yeah.
Would you use bamboo?
Don't know if bamboo would do it.
mean,
I don't know.
Bamboo, they made bows out of bamboo, but
Yeah.
not
They're
in the
laminated,
round
though.
form.
Yeah.
They would split it.
Yeah. Give it a swing.
Do the Japanese scythe?
They do.
And do
They use a little. It's more of a hand sickle. I don't know if they have the big long European style blade or not. Or
Just a little
snap.
hand, a little.
Okay, step to the other side. Yeah, just step to the other side. And thumbs kind of go on top of that. Yeah, thumbs
You
kind
got
of go
it?
on top.
Okay,
there you go.
looks good.
That's the proper grip.
Okay.
And
Now
go
just
over here
imagine you're floating like half an inch over the surface. Bend your knees a little bit more, Diane, maybe. Yeah, it looks good.
Woo, bang.
Were you saying you were going to get some?
Yeah, you know this razor. I started shaving with a straight razor several years ago, and I never knew what sharp was until I met a straight razor. And that is just so unbelievably sharp. It has this thing where if you, I don't know if you can see the light under here, but the blade actually flexes at just bending over my nail. You see it right there. It just flexes right at the top of my nail.
If you
And
can get an end-on shot right of the blade,
I'll
just,
get an Indy. I'll get an Indy. She'll get a heady.
you
Yeah.
can see where how the blade thins to almost nothing.
Yeah, it's just
And for a
barely
long
there.
distance.
You see the blade flexes right there where it touches my nail?
Where
See
you
that
can
little
see the
ridge?
way the reflection kind of distorts. I don't know if it's possible to pick that up on a camera or not.
HD.
Are you flattening your nail?
No,
No.
he's actually just bending the blade of
Yeah,
the
but
razor.
that's how
up.
thin that edge is. It's just flexing by as it bends over my over. But I did until I started shaving with a straight razor, and I started shaving, scything at the same time, approximately. I discovered what sharp really was.
Are you
And
recommending we all shave? Is that
well, I recommend that if you want to learn how to sharpen, you've never been challenged more than that first time you put this in your offhand and you stand in front of a mirror and you start shaving your neck like this. That is the acid test for guts.
If it's dull, it's painful.
And it's painful and it will hurt you. But the straight razor, you know, ended up being kind of, to me, a lot like the scythe. The sharp is the same. That thing is as easily as sharp as a straight razor. When you draw that out and polish it with a fine grit stone, that's just as sharp as anything can be in the world.
Could you give us some technique on straight razor?
I just did it like just a few hours
Diane,
ago. It wouldn't be I'd have to shave something I really.
Just, you're taking too big of steps.
Well, that's the thing.
Just-
That's the
just
other
sit
thing
there
about
and
the
roll your
scythe
hips.
is
And
when
just
you
take
shave,
take like a little
you
half
don't.
step.
We use a shave. We use a
Oh, yeah,
razor,
you're
a
doing good.
T-handle type
Right,
razor,
you're a little bit
like
too
a rake.
steep of an angle of attack.
But when you shave with a
Which
straight
is
razor,
hard to-
you
So more
sweep
like
it
that?
like this.
Yeah,
You shear.
and also,
Just like a barber
yeah,
would
yeah,
would
and
shear
just-
with this
but see,
as
watch
they
what
cut.
you're doing. You're
They don't
actually
rake
pulling
it
in
straight
towards
down.
it.
It doesn't run
You
this
actually
way.
wanna
They run
shear
at
sideways
a
like
diagonal.
this. Rather than that's
Yeah,
what you're
that's
saying. Don't pull into the grass.
that's the way.
but
That's the way they
actually shear it.
teach you
So
how to
you're making
shave with a
this big
straight razor.
circle.
My old barber told
Let
me
me
if he
just
learned
do
how
it.
to
Just
shave
see
a
how I'm
balloon.
kind of rotating around?
They'd take a balloon and cover it with shaving cream, and they had to shave it clean.
And I'm not
And
doing
bow,
a huge
you know,
circle.
you can
He was doing a whole half circle.
the
I'm
old
just
school
doing a little
barber.
tiny one to start with.
Yeah, and you can't flinch.
Just to kind of give you a feel.
You can't
for,
flinch if you cut somebody.
And you see how I'm going pretty flat to it.
As far as like brands.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh,
or
I've
not.
just got a bunch of old
Yeah.
ones.
getting
Yeah.
my body
I didn't
done
like that old
can be-
stance.
We're
Yeah,
gonna do the
I've-
buy out back. Pat said it's behind the greenhouse.
Yeah, I've got a
Yeah.
150-year-old straight razor. I use it every other day or so.
More like that?
It looks like the angle's still too steep to me. What are you seeing? You know,
The
and I'm not sure.
Let's see it. The cut's all right. It's so much is just
See, watch the way his angle where it actually touches
Keep
the
it
grass.
closer to your body. I think you're pulling it out more like this, what gives it that,
that's
kind
what
of
I'm
approach.
saying. It's
And
giving-
so bring it in closer like
see
this.
how the blade is more or less following the circle. And that's actually making a slicing cut as opposed to a chopping cut, yeah.
Yep, that's how you want it. If you do it this way, you're
Richard, you got
there's
that
a rock
tip way out.
right
Try
there.
to keep it flat to the ground.
There's a rock right there, and if I'm going sideways here and I hit that rock, I'm in trouble. If I'm going with it proper, the edge will never touch the rock. That's how you protect your edge. There's a rock conveniently located right here.
So to learn it, could I
So-
just be sort of thinking about the rib sliding on the grass?
Sorta,
The rib edge?
yeah. There's a
Yeah.
sweet spot on the blade. You want the edge to be, the tip to be up just a little bit, and this edge has to be up a little bit. The cutting edge has to be up. But I want to show you with that rock right there. If you're going this way and you hit that, you're going to just destroy the blade. So if you're using it properly, and step back just a little bit. If I'm using this properly, I can just hit that rock and it goes right over it, and the edge is protected. And I'll hit it first from here, and I'll know it's there. And I know next time to just, if I need to cut there and the rock's too big to move, I just cut around it and go that way and cut that spot that way. But I don't worry about it. If I'm gonna hit it, it's gonna go over it. It's not gonna wreck it like it would if I were swinging it.
And you also see how Larry's only doing like 4 inches at a time. What
Yeah.
I see everyone doing is making huge steps and trying
Every-
to go like a foot at a time.
Yep.
And you don't want to go that much. You want to just take a narrow strip each slice, so you're making that nice slicing cut. Because you'll end up missing a lot of grass if you step over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just a little half step you're kind of taking.
Yep, it's just I call it a little stutter step. It's just I move a ½ inch at a time, and every pass of the thing, and I'll just show you about how much grass I'll cut with one pass, and that's just that much. Longer blades cut a deeper cut. The big 85 centimeter blade, this being a 60, that big long one will cut twice that with each pass.
Do they make two-sided sides?
Nope.
Why
I can't imagine how that would have worked.
You need to have this bent up rib on the backside to give it stiffness, or else this blade would totally be floppy.
Yeah, the rib's got to be there. Are you talking about a T-shaped blade?
Yeah.
One for a return cut? The line would be different, and
Yeah, your
the
angle
whole,
would be totally.
yeah, it'd be
it
totally
wouldn't
off.
work.
And there's enough to think about. Yeah, but this is, yeah, that's the thing. You want that to just run in that arc with the hand close to you. This rotates pretty much around your body. You don't want to rotate it out here, and I think that's what a lot of people try to do is they rotate it out this way. That causes that to, or like that, or like I've seen it all, but you just want to have it follow that line.
I tell people to just try to use your hips as much as possible, because I think that to me is where it really comes in.
And sharpen often. You don't want to sharpen it when it's dull. You want to sharpen it while it's still sharp. Just polish it. This stone is very, very hard and doesn't take off metal much at all. But it polishes beautifully. So somebody else give it a swing. Try this this ditch cut over here. That's
I want to cut anymore by the creek, but we have a
Oh,
bunch
okay.
behind
Okay.
there we can cut.
all right. Let's go there. So if I had just cut here, so if I had just cut here and somebody's coming in behind me, they would cut here.
And you see how Larry's only going like 3 or 4 inches at a time. That's why he's taking really tiny steps.
So I'm cutting through where I just cut a moment ago. And if someone were cutting that way, I would just continue to progress behind them. And as I cut from here, someone would come in behind me. That's how you attack an entire big field.
Should we let other people try?
Sure. There you go. When you clean a blade, you always want to wipe the blade to get stuff off of it. Don't ever use your hand. And though it doesn't need it right now, I'll start it off with a sharp blade. Nothing is satisfying. There.
I'd say get a little closer to the ground. Or do you want to make comments? Or?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
And don't step as much forward. Yeah.
And if you think there are bunny nests and things, you do want to be a little higher.
You just pay attention to what you're mowing.
It is amazing. I mean, I'll see birds' nests,
Yeah.
you know, ahead and just mow around the birds' nest. Because there's birds that will just make nests in tall grass like this.
If you take about a full step to your left and just,
My arc is not as big as
yeah, and just come on and push that down all the way to the
But
left.
also, to me, she's using her arms a lot more than her hips.
Yeah.
I mean, I would try to use my hips more. Just so you don't get
Yeah.
so tired out.
It's such a complex thing to learn. There's so much going on when you're first starting. You've got this, yeah, you got this,
And you're on film.
yeah, got this big long stick with this impossibly sharp blade and all of this happening, and you know, and the great temptation is to have that thing just go swinging up in the air like it's a golf club. And,
Yeah, that's
and
nice.
yeah.
but see
it's
that's
looking
just a
better.
perfect. That's just a
Yeah,
perfect
you-
whack there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just keep that follow through on the left side. Just keep enough energy going where you got plenty to follow through on the left.
So he's saying emerge from here. That's good.
You want to punch on through. That's it. Punch on
That
through.
looks great.
Yeah, and you just got a little bit off a little too much with that one. So take a half a step back and then another half a step forward when you get through that.
I would say a good way to tell people to start is just practice swinging in place.
Actually,
Oh, yeah.
Get your
The short grass is the place to start. That's a little more challenging.
yeah,
But
but it's a lot more gratifying.
oh yeah, yeah.
also, she's from the right. She's swinging about 4 feet with nothing, just through the air. So in terms of your energy,
But-
if you were oriented a bit more to the left,
And also she was right where I had cut, and she had moved into the left at that point.
Okay, that might
Yeah.
be.
So she's starting to catch up now with her cut, where she started.
So what you're saying is don't follow on the tracks of someone else because they're going to have set up
Yeah.
a different path.
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah, look at that. I mean,
Yeah. That's just remarkable for.
you're doing a great job. I mean,
Excellent.
the grass looks nice.
And so you can run into that where you get too heavy a load, sort of, if it's real tall by the time
Yes.
you're at the end.
Well,
Exactly.
to me, you just take less of a cut. You try to take like 2 inches.
Right.
You know, because what I'm seeing, the main thing here is she's trying to take like 8 or 10 inches, which is more than I would take.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying you're doing it on
Yeah.
purpose.
Yeah.
It's true, I've got all this out here.
Does someone else want to try it? Because I think, or are you still?
Yeah. Everybody give it a swing. This
Yeah.
this grass is so wonderful. What I also want to do.
I don't
I
think I
want to
did.
try that one. I really like how you followed the whole handle.
Yeah, it's nice and sharp.
Finished, not just, you know, you didn't just try to finish it where it would make a difference. Give Richard the whole thing looks nice.
Yeah, I don't remember why I did that other than just trying to, you know, as he was saying, trying to get it so that it actually does have a little bit of flexibility to
Yeah.
it.
Is that right?
Nope. It
yeah,
goes on your left
that's
side of
a
your
right-handed
body.
one too. As he says,
Nope,
it's
goes on the left
impossible to
side of
get
your body.
left-handed blades.
There you go.
Where do you?
Yep, thumbs on top.
aim over
Basically,
here
yeah, that's basically the way I hold it. I don't know. I have to just grab it and hold it. Yeah, that's the way I hold it. Yeah, your thumbs are on top.
Okay.
Wouldn't that what you'd say, Larry? Keep your thumbs up like this?
Yeah.
Okay.
To me, that just helps me control the angle.
Yeah.
I know where the blade is a little better. I blacksmith
Yeah.
with the thumb on top.
Yeah.
It keeps me from squeezing the hammer.
Yeah.
See, that's way in the air. Yep.
That's better. So, Diane, you may want to move this way a little bit so you're not, because what'll happen is
Yeah.
you want to have a free space for the blade to emerge. You want the blade to emerge
Go grab
right
a
here.
rake.
Okay.
So just think about where you're going to emerge it. And you're starting way up at the beginning. You see where you've got this
whole other area.
whole area. You're starting really high and then you're diving down low.
Okay.
So try to imagine just keeping it flat with the ground. It's tricky. I mean, I've been doing it for 25 years and I don't still claim to be an expert, so. What? Or 30 years?
25.
What'd you say?
He's 25.
Yeah, it might have, well, let's see, I made that handle in 94 and I've been using it for a while.
Yeah, he's born in 89. And you're still learning, you know?
I think I started on that particular side blade in about 88, so.
So that wasn't.
That's way better.
Keep it close to that.
And the trick now is to take smaller cuts. Just start out, just stay in place. Don't even try to cut anything. Just try to make a swing a couple times in place and then just try to take a tiny little step. How are you feeling about that, Diane?
Well, they're coming down.
Yeah, you're coming up a little bit at the end,
It feels like
and you're a little higher off the ground than
it feels like it's my waist that's turning.
you should have your waist turned.
So
Just look at my arms can be perfectly straight and not moving, and see I'm just twisting. And that's the way I like to think about it, is just twisting my hips. At least I find my arms don't get tired. You know, as I say, if you do it for 5 minutes, it's one thing. If you try to do it for hours and hours and cut a big field, you definitely want to. So try to get a little closer.
also not ending at the right place, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to make a suggestion that you don't try to cut anything. Just try to go flat along this section here, and just try to trim this up. No, you stay in the same position. Just try to get this part here down. See that little? See how I'm cutting that off flatter?
Oh, in terms of trying to be low.
Well, in terms of trying to keep it flat the whole way across,
Right.
as much as possible, and also trying to take little tiny bits,
Right.
so that way it doesn't take so much energy. You can follow through.
When it's off the ground, moving it is wasted energy. Okay? So all this motion of
Oh, I got
here
a beer belly.
and of here is wasted energy. You want this to just be a linear exchange of energy. Just one sweep.
But it's
You're not lifting
just
it
wanting to
here.
take a
You're
little
not lifting
tiny
it
cut. And
here.
You can see how Larry's
It's just
taking
the drive.
a little tiny cut. It's like if you're shoveling a whole pile of gravel. You actually can shovel more by taking smaller
Right.
shovels than if you just try to get as much as you can
Cutting
on the
tall
shovel.
stuff also, oftentimes it'll get caught up and you'll drag it. This one's not, but you drag this stuff back across. So just a little detail. When it gets hung on, you just push it out like this. It'll release it. I want everybody to try this. And also want to show you how to deal with the grass you've cut. The traditional wooden rake is incredible. And The teeth are wide enough apart where it doesn't bind up too much. And once you've got this stuff cut, it all goes to one spot. It all lays out in a nice windrow. But it's got to be spread out first to let it dry, and then flipped to dry it out over underneath, and then rolled up again at night. You familiar with the haymaking thing like that?
Yeah, I don't roll it at night, I'll have to admit, but
Yeah.
I do dry it and save it for our animals.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how, if you're just careful with it, how good a smelling hay you'll get after a couple days.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and to me, I figure if it smells good to me, it probably really
There you go.
smells good to the horses and the goats.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Connect for us. Step back back into the row there.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I see.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, about
And
there.
just plan for your arc to emerge. Try to make the first cut without cutting anything, just gliding right next to it. That's good, yeah.
Just follow it through. A little more, yeah, a little more at the end. There you go. It's not like hitting something with a hammer where it's going to stop. You just got to, it's like a tennis ball, a golf ball. You got to have that real follow through.
Felt like I was an airplane trying to come in for a landing every time I did a swing. You know,
Yeah, it should always be, it's like if you're watching skiers, the skis are always on the ground. The knees are the shock absorbers, and the skis, they want that in contact with the ground. You can't turn if you're in the air, you know, if you're a skier. The blade won't cut if it's, you know, if it's somewhere off in space either, so. It's nice. The tendency is to cut upward on the left. It's harder to keep that push down. To just twist the body, you're kind of winding up and your arms are getting shorter as it goes over to the left, and it naturally wants to raise that blade. You got to consciously twist and push the right shoulder down a little bit to get that scythe to stay to the ground. But it's very indiscriminate. It cuts the big stalky stuff. You know, if you have the blade good and sharp and the hafting angle set just right, everything else, and that stubble you're standing in there, Richard, if you'll back up just a few feet, just go straight back, you can cut all that stubble down to the ground.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, just so you can see all that stuff that's left standing. You you can cut it all the way to the ground.
And and it's still tricky to keep it from coming up at the end, as you can see. It's probably something that just takes practice.
It is. It is. There's so much coming at you. Again,
Yeah.
it's you got this big, you know, stick that's almost as long as you are, and this.
We need to dry them.
Yeah, there's a lot of dynamics going on. Had an interesting. I taught a very interesting scythe class. I had just finished doing a class up in Wisconsin, and the phone rang, and this guy on the phone. Larry, this is Barry Newman. I'm with the Wall Street Journal. I said, oh yeah, like I want to buy a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. He says, is this Larry Cooper, the scythe instructor? And I said, well, yes, it is. I just, you know, just so happens I just finished a scythe class here in Wisconsin. I was on the interstate droning home. He says, you got a few minutes to talk? I said, sure. He says, I'm writing an article about the use of the scythe in America, and you know, I want to include you in this. And we chatted for a while.
It's great to cut it, but it has to stay right where it's cut.
Oh,
This is a no-till operation. We need the stuff on the bed where we cut it.
okay, we'll put it back.
Just have to spread it, yeah.
But anyway, I was interviewed ultimately for the Wall Street Journal and featured in an article there about scythe instructing. The guy flew into Raleigh and came and visited me one day. It was crazy. Why in the world they would put an article on scything in the Wall Street Journal, but they did.
They put a lot of stuff in the Wall Street.
Yeah, right.
Saturday at our workshop, Marshall's father came and he had an article from the Wall Street Journal about how if we all ate organic, So they're doing
Yes,
a lot
I just
more.
saw that. Yeah, it's amazing. But his take on it was people doing suburban lawns. Yeah, and he had people all around, you know, suburban New York doing,
Show on
doing
You
that.
can bring. Diane's wanting to know if she should bring the antique side over. We can get the snap
show a big
adjusted.
cut.
Sure.
You want
It
to
Sure,
just-
if it's sharp, I didn't.
not
It
at all
wasn't
sharp.
wasn't
It's not at
all
all
that
sharp.
sharp. We can
And
we
we're
can.
gonna have to adjust the handles because
Yeah.
the handles are totally out of
Yeah,
whack.
that would be an interesting thing to.
But why don't you bring it
to
over?
try.
We'll talk about how to adjust the handles to, because you can those handles are much more adjustable than these handles. No, they come off. Just bring it over. Unless, of course, they're rusted.
No, I think that was in good shape.
Yeah.
It looks like an inside snap, an inside tool.
It's been used outside by us. But
Yeah, but not left hanging in the barn for 80
no,
years.
no.
So we'll rake this back over top.
Yeah.
So
we
is
don't-
this going to be folded back into the ground?
No, just left on top. We don't work
Okay.
stuff into the ground anymore.
Well, no, I mean, I was down at
Did you want?
Ran Bernstein's, and he just had little bars that were just pushing it down like an inch or two. Just folding it over, and he didn't even cut it off. He was just pushing it in.
You sure he's actually getting it in the ground? Because you knock it over and push it to crimp it, but you don't.
Oh,
want to try and get
maybe
it in
he's just crimping
the ground.
it.
Yeah, you're just crimping it to kill it. You're
Okay.
actually not trying to get it in the ground.
If
Okay.
you're working your
You want it on
arm,
top. You want it to be
it's
covered
doing
with
something
right
wrong.
for getting in the ground. That's how
Okay.
it works in nature. And we're finding out that nature knows
And
what
that
it's doing.
snap, man, it just
You know?
it may be one of those things where
Wow.
they spread out too
Right.
much for
Yeah.
you.
No,
may be,
don't give me that back.
You know, several dynamics are at play.
Actually, what we really want to do is roll this. Maybe we want to cut it, but I figured you could do it for this class. You know?
We're not going to get. I mean, we'll cut just a little bit more, and then. So most of it you get to roll, Patrick.
Yeah.
Did you want to try it out and see?
I'm good. I got the concept. I don't want to cut any more than I have to.
Okay.
Larry,
Richard.
what do you call the tool when you were talking about sharpening, the thing that looks like a wedge, you know, the hammer face?
Mhm.
What's that called?
That's called a peen.
Oh, the peen. Oh, that is
Yeah,
the peen.
that's a sharpening peen.
Yeah, just
Mhm.
like the on the hammer.
Yeah.
peen part.
The other term for it is Dingelstock.
Right.
And Dingelstuck
Yeah.
is the Austrian
Austrian
word
name
for it. Yeah, which
And
I'm not
Stück just
exactly.
means peace in
Yeah.
German.
Right.
Yeah.
I was reading Reichen. You know, yeah,
Well,
the
Schnitten,
cutter,
Schnitten is the
yeah.
cut. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Let's see
And
it.
it is from Illinois or Iowa.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say these need to come around, or are they okay where they? I guess
Those-
I guess they're okay where they are.
I honestly see them like that all the time.
So, I mean, you got it up with your waist, and he's got a good distance here.
Mhm.
It's not the dullest thing in the world.
It ought to cut the big stuff pretty easy. There's plenty of resistance there.
I can't stand these guys, but this thing is so heavy. I mean, it feels like
Yeah.
I'm carrying a chunk of lead.
Yeah. All that weight out to the end like that is
Oh yeah,
really,
this is.
really way different. People were shorter then too.
Yeah, I don't know how people manage to do these,
Yeah.
and I don't know whether these can be tightened up or not.
There's a technique that they used in harvesting wheat. They call it mowing up to the wall. And they use those things with those big finger basket things. They were called turkey wings that came up.
You
And
mean a grain cradle?
yeah, grain cradle.
Yeah.
And but they would go up to this. The wheat would just be packed. I mean, just tight. The shafts of the grass would be packed very tightly in there. And they created a
That's cutting okay.
cut.
Do you want to try it, Larry? See
Where-
if you have better luck.
Yeah,
with it?
let's see if I can
It's definitely
imitate that.
It's a challenge to.
But the cut was.
I mean, you can make a good flat cut with that, though.
They called it cutting into the wall, and it was kind of like this. And they would chop it that way, and it would all lay like so. But that cutting into the wall then left all of this right here where they could take it and tie it and shock it and stand it up. But that was a technique, one of the techniques that was used. I never saw these
But you're
used.
still using that low angle. I'm watching what you're cutting, and you're
Oh yeah, Absolutely.
Yeah.
Use that shear cut for sure. That's always. It cuts pretty well. It's just a really different technique when you're cutting into the grass that way.
Well, I'm planning on growing barley next year to make malt to make beer, and I'm going to want to harvest it, so I'll be something like that.
That's the way.
And you'll dry
You
the
see it's
tracks
all
out.
laid in a nice long row like that, but that was the technique that I've seen used for that type of cutting.
But it seems now when grain is harvested, they often let it get much drier.
Yeah.
Whereas back then they would cut it like this, put it in the shock, let it dry out in the field.
Yeah.
Of course, they did the same thing with corn too. Those handles are maddening because they.
Yeah. They're threaded in here.
What? Well, you know, it's a different time and a different probably usage.
Yeah, and it's dull.
Does
It's
anyone
quite
else
dull.
want to try it just to feel what it feels like? And you'll feel how much heavier it is and why you probably do not want to buy one of these in a peak shop
To use.
to use. But
They're-
it's good to get a feel for it. So you.
Yeah, gosh, this weighs about as much as that blade, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And with the weight way out there too, you don't think about this, but with that much weight way out there, that big, heavy, large diameter scythe way out there, on this much lever, you think about how much more that weighs on that lever than that, they just wear you out.
And this is cast iron, and this is cast iron, and they're like 5 times the thickness of that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is when metal was metal and men were men. You know.
And time was little.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think
Time
men got
was
pretty
little.
exhausted too. But you didn't see fat people back then.
Yeah, the days of the headlights on the tractor and the air conditioners and the big bellies on the farmers,
Yeah.
that was a direct result of the tractor. Yeah. So that gives you an idea. Anybody that hasn't mowed as much as they want to, there's plenty of low grass over here to play in, but you can see the efficiency with which this thing does its work. These little short cuts like this. It doesn't care how tall the grass is. It's like, you know, I described the shaving with a straight razor. You can start with a beard just like that. You don't even have to trim it.
Yeah, you just take it right off.
Comes right down to the skin. I had a beard just a couple of weeks ago, and it's just,
And imagine weed eating this. I mean, your
Yeah.
string would be in
Yeah.
total chaos.
yeah, you'd just constantly stop and have to cut it off.
And so if you're trying to harvest, you know, food for your animals, this is a great way to do it.
Yeah,
Or to make mulch for the garden or whatever. I mean,
the modern hay bind has a big crimper rubber roller thing that breaks the shaft. And with that crimping of the shaft through that roller, that allows all the liquid to squeeze out and allows it to evaporate more quickly, and the nutrient goes with it. That real rapid drying, it just causes that nutrient to get lost in a hurry. We grew animals always feeding them exactly this. They deal with chopping it up and making it little themselves.
They were into it before we came along.
Well, yeah, right. But when we decided to take them home and raise them, that was
They got much more nutrients then because that rubber thing isn't involved.
exactly.
but you didn't have to worry about, you did have to worry about rain.
Moisture, yeah.
Now, I mean, you know, everything's, you just want, you're selling your hay by the ton, you know, and so you want to get it. It doesn't matter how you get to that point because they're not necessarily checking for nutrient, they're checking for weight. Now, should we rake this back on? Because Pat says he wants to.
All right.
So we've got a rake here.
When you learn to use a wooden hay rake, try to learn to use it with just holding it with 2 fingers in each hand. And that'll make sure you don't break it. They're delicate, those teeth will break. And I want to teach people always to just use it delicately. If it gets stuck, just let it slide in your hand instead of dragging it on because that will break the teeth.
And I'd say the one, and I forgot to bring it. It didn't even occur to me, but mine is probably another 4 or 5 inches longer at either end, but it looks virtually identical.
Yeah, yeah.
And I took a small locust tree once again for the handle.
Mhm.
And then I just peeled the tree and just use that as the handle, and
Right.
that way there's no. I think it's real important to not saw the wood out.
Oh, you're right. Absolutely right.
If you can.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Now this
to not
one,
saw the wood.
Oh,
If you
not
split
saw.
it out, then you.
It'll follow its natural grain. Just-
Yeah, and then it's much less likely to break on you, and you can actually have a smaller, lighter handle.
absolutely. Anytime you can rive something out, split it out, it's much better for the wood, ultimately, than.
And you see the way he's just teasing the top of it?
Yeah.
So you're just spreading it all out so it would be drying, but also it'll help what Pat wants to do, which is to completely recover the area, from my understanding.
Yeah, well, I want it on the bed. I mean, that's what, there's a path. The idea is we want that stuff to rot on the beds and build nutrition. It's one of the weeds. Yeah.
Okay. So you had peas and rye in here?
Yeah, it's a mix. Probably had peas, rye, clover.
The 6-foot handle on this thing, you can really reach way across. And if you're working with 2 people, there's a technique for making hay that you would roll all this together here with 2 people working. Another person would be standing here. As I'm progressing sideways, my partner will be raking toward here. We get all this stuff into one log. You can flip it over and dry the underside, and then spread it again. And then roll it up again at night, keep the dew off of it.
And would you keep moving it over?
Yeah, you can just
do
roll
that?
it like this. Just roll the whole thing over.
So you're not killing the grass, so it doesn't lay in
Yeah.
one spot. You
Right.
keep moving it across the field.
Yep.
Whereas we definitely want to kill the grass.
Let's get this thing covered back in.
Well, then you can make a haystack, which is fun in itself.
Yeah.
And the haystacks I grew up with, they put a piece of wood in the middle and just start stacking it around and just keep stomping it down. And just keep going up and up. What? You just put a wooden stake in the middle of your haystack, and you can just stand on that and walk around and keep stomping it down and keep walking in a circle, and people shoveling it up, and you keep walking higher and higher and higher.
So it's tall.
Well, the idea is that, you know, it's just like a thatched roof. You want and of course, when you get to the top, you want to arrange the hay to shed water, because the idea is you want to store that food and not rot it. So, you know, and it allows you to not have to build as many barns and stuff.
But you're talking about a stake, not a stake.
I'm talking about a whole pole, yeah, a tall pole. It just gives you a reference point to walk around and try to keep your haystack pretty regular. When you get up to the top, you don't see it. And of course, those are the days before they had plastic to put over top and all that.
Plastic is not 15 years even.
Let that nutrient get back where it came from.
Well, and the whole silage
good.
piles. I mean,
No,
I
sure.
never saw those when I was a kid. The whole side hill silage piles.
Feel free to rearrange.
I mean, it's just amazing how
And you
quickly
just sort
things
of
have changed from what it was.
yeah,
for
you just
hundreds
kind of
of
pick
years.
it and drag it out.
Pretty soon the landfills-
That'll spread it out to dry.
Excuse me?
Pretty soon the landfills will be full of it.
Yeah. Well, the little bits of plastic. I guess you've seen in the ocean how these little micro bits of plastic apparently are
And you never
everywhere.
Right. It's
Well,
angled
the
back.
microbits that
It's a one
apparently all
angle,
the
one
little
direction
tiny
tool.
Microorganisms are taking in.
If you
filling
want to,
their little guts.
if
up
you
with
want to
just
spread
tons
it,
of
you can
little
just
tiny-
kind of walk through it like this
Flakes
and go
of
side to
plastic.
side with it. Just kind of rock your hands like so to spread it.
Yes.
A little bit here and a little bit that direction, a little bit there, and
Well,
that'll
it'll,
really
you know,
spread it
a
out.
million years from
Then you
now, it'll be this line
recollect
in the
later
ocean
in the
bed,
day.
You know, in the rock.
Then roll it over and dry the
Which will be full
underside.
of polymers.
Flip that around.
Yeah.
It's a lot of handling. That's why we used to have 10 or 20 kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I think we're good.
Yeah.
That's close enough for jazz. Close
All
enough
right.
for farming.
Well, should we head back and talk about other stuff?
Sounds like a plan.
Has anyone got any more questions about size?
Where do you get them?
I don't remember where I got this. Larry is selling them, so he probably
Has an opinion.
has an opinion about where to get it.
In North Carolina even.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a place in Wisconsin and one in North Carolina that makes these. So we're trying to break them off into the world at large. But this scythe I made, designed it based on kind of a Danish concept, sort of a Northern European scythe. But I wanted to create something that could be made over and over and over and be made very, very well. I want it to be adjustable so you can cut hill banks, or hillsides and ditch banks, and flat with it. You can really stretch them out and get extra width. The lockup on this thing, this is a tapered mortise and tenon joint, very, very strong. Put the handle down here to give a very wrist neutral position as you use the thing. The wrist just stays exactly neutral as it rotates through the hand like this. It really saves your wrist
That's
from
why it
trouble
curves
down the
down
road.
like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So maybe I should change my handle. And I haven't noticed my wrist being bothered by it, but I guess as I get older, it's something to watch out for.
It is.
So I want to.
It is. But yeah, the wrist just stays perfectly neutral in the whole range of the tool as it goes around. The wrist doesn't move at all. And also, they're curved because you will sometimes want to change the angle as you're mowing on a hillside. Sometimes I'm like this, you know, I'm reaching way up on something steep. I'm working at this angle. Or if I'm really getting in nice hay, you know, it's real flat. But all the angles correspond with the angle of the tang. When you buy a la carte, it's tough. And, you know, and we're buying all this stuff from Europe. There are 2 companies in America right now that make scythes. It's Marug and Scythe Supply up in Maine. Everybody else is getting them from Europe. And I thought, why aren't we selling our trees to Europe? They cut them up and make money off of us and take our trees too. And even this little thing right here, the snath, this ring, you can't find those. I make these myself. I have a guy laser cut all the parts, and I bend them and weld them up to the TIG. And I just thought, surely to goodness, you know, I don't need to pay $5 to get this in Europe when I can make it for $3.50 here, you know. And so that's what started my whole broad fork business and the scythe business too, was what are we thinking? We got to start making things again and offering it to the national market.
And also,
toolingtherevolution.com.
and as you're using it, think about what's causing you a problem, because, you know, that can be the next innovation on making these better. Because in my mind, you know, the hand tools kind of, by 1900, they quit evolving in this country.
Yes.
And, you know, what we're using now was based on technology from over a century ago.
Yeah.
And I think we can still evolve efficient hand tools based on the materials we've got. You know, like for instance, he's using steel or stainless steel up there as opposed to this one, which is cast iron.
Right.
And so it's way lighter. And when that was made, cast iron was much cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
But now, because of the technology we're using, the steel is actually cheaper, I think, than cast iron when you go to the junkyard.
Yeah, and for the strength that's just inherent in this.
It's way stronger than
Yeah.
the cast iron. So, you know, I think that everyone can work, you know, just by thinking about how it's feeling with your own body, you know, what you're feeling as you use it. Everyone can contribute to the evolution of tools.
Yep.
Which they did. I mean, up until recently.
Yeah, all of them.
You know, you'd go down to your local blacksmith, or you shave your own axe handles. When we look at axes a little later, I brought axe handle that I made, and I bought a commercial axe handle. And, you know, I just made one to fit my body, and just like I made this, you know, and I think that, you know, if you can't do it yourself, there are people around who, you know, woodworkers and other stuff who can make stuff that'll fit it.
All right. Let's press on. Somebody grab something. There you go. It's all right.
Remember your notebook.
Yep.
Sling that over your shoulder and get all grim on us. I keep wanting my wife to make a soul harvesting cloak for me when I go and teach. I've got a class in June.
You mean a whole black
Yeah.
thing with
There's your instructor out there.
Has Zev Friedman ever talked to you, Barron, about making, he has this weed chopper that
People were just shorter and really stocky and muscular.
And they use different techniques.
Yeah.
That's a large part of it too. That little short swing I was doing, cutting a big, wide, long swing with that thing would kill you. Yeah, it was just a choppier world back then. That's better. couple of things. Let's see, that I'll need.
And I went to pick this up where I came here. I found my neighbor had borrowed it.
Yeah.
And I found it at his house, and which is why it's in terrible condition.
So what I'll do to start peening, you want to have things nice and crisp and fresh so you can see where you've been. Is the large part.
And
This is a rubber. It's a rubber impregnated with abrasive material. It's a flexi sanding disc, sanding block rather. So you get it at any hardware store in the world. They're around.
well, the other thing, if you have a lot of rust on it, actually can push it into the surface, and I think can make little sites where it can crack.
Yeah.
You know. Because metal, if it's got a little groove or any scratch in it, that's where it's going to break. Have you had any luck welding these?
No.
I haven't either. People bring them to me and I try to weld them up and they just don't.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
I can weld it, it's just, I don't know what the temper is or the way they're hardened, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's a hit or miss deal.
Unless it were to break right here somewhere.
Right.
In which
right.
case you wouldn't affect the blade. But
Yeah, you just have to put some kind of a heat sink under it, because that would just get so hot. You just have to put some kind of sink under it, like a block of aluminum or something, and weld through
but
that.
even there,
Yeah.
it changes the temper so much right where you're welding it that
Yeah.
it then wants to crack again on either side of the weld.
Of course. This is a very special steel.
Yeah.
This stuff starts about that size and about that long. If you take a piece of this size material about that long, it weighs the same as the blade. So this metal moves out that much. It's got that much hot ductility, and for it to do that, you know, that's asking a lot of a blade. So you first get down to fairly bare metal, and remember when we work with this tool on the bottom, we work with the flat on the face, and I have a tool that looks like this on the top, and you'd use that end of the hammer. So when we work this tool on the bottom, yeah, there you go. This is more of a repairing type anvil, and this is more of a sharpening anvil. This right here needs to have on about this much of the blade. Now I'm looking at that, that's less than 1/4 of an inch. It needs to have just a little hook. And that's what we're going to do by putting it on top of that, is going to bring that out, and that just brings that little edge, that cutting edge up just a little more. So you start out here on the tip, and you find the tangent point on top of this, and you just start hammering out towards the tip here.
I think also by curling it over a little bit, it changes the angle you're sharpening it at.
It does.
And that
And
gives
you can see already just this little section right here where it's drawn. You can probably see it's shinier there than just that little section. It's burnished. This hammer burnishes it as well as but you can see where you've hit, and you start from the tip and go to the tail.
You're gonna get over here one more time.
I can see.
Okay.
And you just got to support it and keep it in the right spot with your off leg. And we'll trade legs in just a second when it gets over to here, and I'll support it with that other leg.
So you said you went the little curl at the actual blade edge. So you're not actually hitting it right at the edge?
Yes,
correct?
I'm working about a millimeter of the width of the blade out there.
Okay.
And that's just causing that whole thing to pull around a little bit.
Would you say that's a good representation?
Yeah. Yep.
So if you can see how he's just pulling it right over the edge there. And I'm grossly exaggerating, but basically he's just rolling this down a little bit. And he's also actually thinning it out at the same time.
Drawing it.
Yeah, drawing it out. So that makes it's going to be less to sharpen because it's a much thinner thing. And actually your blade lasts longer because you're not grinding away as much steel. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're actually sort of hitting it toward yourself?
You mean pulling with a hammer?
Not necessarily. Some people do that. They call it a quartering draw stroke or something. And a lot of people do that and essentially work it this way.
Right.
It has such a minimal effect.
I don't think because see, this is already rounded.
Yeah.
And actually you're squeezing it and it's just squeezing out. So
Yep.
I agree. I think you're getting more
Yep.
from just the hitting.
Yep. You're confining that blow.
I think it's more important when you watch him hit that you're just holding it and making sure you're not bouncing it a whole lot. To me,
I
you're
missed
just
it
kind
there.
of, excuse me?
I just missed it. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
get it too far over, it doesn't have that nice clack.
Yeah, you really want to make sure you got that contact and that you're getting a good.
And if you have your regular stump set up at your regular shop or at the edge of the field, your height's just right, and this should ideally be connected so this isn't moving around. But you know, for just the edge of the field type stuff, this works just fine.
But for most people, they're not going to be doing this. Would you say you're going to have to do it when you're doing?
I mow a lot. I mow acres and acres a year. So you know, I'll do a class and we'll mow in 2 or 3 hours. We'll mow 40 bales of hay. We'll rake it all out and run a mechanical baler over it, and we'll have 40 acres of hay, 40 bales of hay. We once rolled up 3 round bales in one class. we dragged them off with oxen. You know, it's just you can cut an amazing amount of grass once you get everybody going. So, you know, but in that, if you hit something,
I mean, like a rock or.
Yeah, if you hit a fence post, a T-post, or it's really important to get this last few inches really nice, because that's a large part of what's doing the cutting. It all works down to that edge. Now, if you look, you still see there's a small, if you get it right in the sun, and everybody ought to see this, you can still see a little reflective stripe there. When you look at it just in the sun, you can still see light reflecting off of that. I can see it. If you'll pass that blade around and look at it facing the sun, you'll just see that tiny little silver line. And let's see if I've got anything I can actually repair. I don't think I have any damaged blades here. It's a little nick.
Oh my goodness. So that's not an intentional pattern on the blade. It's just
Oh,
what
that?
happens.
Oh no, that is absolutely. These things are so complex to make. Good heavens.
Like a Damascus finish.
Well, that's all cold worked. That little line that runs right through there, there's a little machine like it hits about as fast as a sewing machine, and there's a blade maker that's pulling that through cold, and that's what gets this curve into it here. It's cold hardened and shaped that way, like a body of a car is
Power
shaped.
hammer or something.
It's a little tiny trip hammer, exactly.
And they're actually tuning the blade to give it a certain amount of flexibility and other things.
Yeah. Where is mine?
What I would call tuning a blade. Is that a good term for it, Larry? Or?
That's a great term. Yeah.
To me, it's like when you get those big circular saw blades, there are people who are
Right.
experts at getting those, because those actually start out a little dished, and then when they go up to speed, you know, they flatten out on a sawmill. And there's a guy who can sit there and he can look at the blade and tap it and get that tuned perfectly so when it gets up to speed. It's the same thing with this. I mean, this is all tuning the blade so that it's working really well too.
Now this has a little damage to the blade, and I'll show you how you fix that. There's a little nick right here, okay? You can just see it. So what I'll do to fix that is I've changed the tools. So instead of using this one, which is the sharpening peen, I'm using more of the repair tool here. And I'll flip this over then, because remember, I am working this way, and we want to maintain that kind of curl on there. And that I need to pull some metal out to fill that gap. So I'll just go right here and very carefully go up and pull some metal down.
So what he's got, I don't know if you guys can see, as you look down the edge, there's like a little valley that comes in. And when you're scything along, that's going to be a spot that's going to catch and potentially get worse and worse if you leave it in.
I've just pulled that little nick right out by just drawing it out with the hammer. And it's delicate, you know, you're just working with tiny little bits of material. And so that's pretty good. It had a little notch in there a moment ago, and I just drew some steel out to fill that. So I can take this now, and when you don't have your blade on something, you can sharpen it by putting it. Yeah, there you go. Putting it on something, just working it this way. So I want to just work that little spot where I just hammered.
So you could use those same tools and deal with it in a scissor blade or a knife at home?
No, it's a different kind of steel. And
Different
it's got a different
game
temper.
altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah. This stuff is much more ductile than, say, a pair of scissors. The ductility allows it to stretch a little more, and the malleability that's built into the specific steel.
It's a different alloy.
Yeah, they add a little more
probably
phosphorus
silica
or silica or
yeah.
chromium or molybdenum or whatever it is that, with the other balance of the material, would give it that. But they figured this out 500 years ago, and they've done real well with it.
But I think they're still developing steels.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure. Yeah, but anyway, that's how the two different tools work. One for sharpening, one more for repair, those peens. And these are the modern day version of old tools. These are just short ones. They're taller ones. This is a new version of that same thing. This one's an Austrian-made deal, and I'll show you.
And someone was selling these at the Organic Grower School, I noticed.
really?
Yeah, when I was there. So I know that they're available because I've seen them for sale in Asheville.
Very critical is that this be polished like a mirror, because if this has grind lines on it, every one of those lines is going to cut your steel and make it microscopically look like corduroy. It'll never get sharp.
And not only that, but that also provides a site for cracking.
Yes.
And these blades, as I said, once they crack, you can't fix them. I've tried to fix them, I guess. Have you tried to fix them?
Yeah, I say I have.
I mean, people
just kind of go through the motions, but
people have asked me to weld them up, and I weld them up. I say I can't guarantee it, and you can't because it's some.
And again, this blade I showed you with that straight razor, but you can see the metal actually at the edge of the blade bending under the pressure of just pushing it against my thumbnail. It's just, that's so thin right out there at the edge. So, you know, a little bit of imperfection in the surface of this shows up, and we'll give that a place to start a crack. So this is a new version of that tool, and what this gives you then is it gives you a little guide. These little stops here gives you a place so it's not so critical to hold that up there so desperately carefully. That gives you a little bit of a guide. No, because you're working, again, you're just working right on top of here like this. It just gives that a place to where you don't have to balance it so carefully. These little fins here just give that edge a place to go. On the other side of that,
and those are aluminum, right? So
these are stainless.
Oh, they're stainless.
Yeah, that's a piece of stainless. So
okay.
You're pushing the blade against the stainless, but it, you know,
Yeah.
This is what they're offering. This is just one of the things on the market. I don't like this. I think you ought to just spend the time to learn the tool the traditional way. So that's essential sharpening 101 with peening the scythe blade edge. A pair of these tools should go with any scythe and learn how to use it. I'll do a peening class sometime. Call me up. I teach all this stuff. So I teach a couple classes. You're familiar with Tillers International up in Michigan, a traditional farming school. I teach ox driving and blacksmithing and various other stuff up there. So they're doing a master gardening tool class up there this year too. But I'd be glad to bring a peening class over here sometime.
So could you split blade?
Most often, people split blades by doing something crazy, by doing this with it, by using it dull and using it improperly.
And
you're
just
not cutting
really
it.
forcing it and whacking it against stuff.
And you know, when you do this, the tool is not. None of this is engineered for this kind of stress here. And when you get it in this kind of load, this is so thin, and if it's got any kind of defect in the edge at all, it'll pop.
And you know, you decide you're going to take a nice woody tree down that's a few years old, and you whack at it with like an axe. And I mean, you'd be amazed. It's easy enough to abuse a tool.
Yep. Oh, there you go. And so when you get through peening, you should just sharpen it with a really fine-grained stone like this one is my finest fine-grained stone I have. These are all European stones, and I'm unsure of what they are, but they've been mining.
They're probably a sandstone, I would say.
They've been mining this stuff for
It could be a slate.
1,000 years over there. I have a slate stone, beautiful, wonderful stone.
Yeah, but they're basically all sedimentary rock. And what's important with any natural stone is that or any stone, is that the stone keeps exfoliating or keeps coming off. Because if you don't, it gets all glazed over, and you'll notice the stone gets shiny spots on it. And do you have that little thing? I want to tighten this up.
There,
Okay.
on the blue tag.
And the water actually helps carry those particles away.
Yeah, it builds a little slurry, an abrasive slurry right on the cutting edge, and it
And
just
some
grinds
some
out.
stones use oil to carry the slurry away, and some you use water. Some you don't have to use anything. They just naturally abrade.
And so where can the likes of us buy these things?
There are several places where you can do that. I sell this stuff from Tooling the Revolution. I have all this available. My partner up in Minnesota now, Botan Anderson at One Scythe Revolution. Tooling the Revolution, One Scythe Revolution, Scythe Supply has them. Marug has them. And the rest of them are in Canada. Marug, M-A-R-U-G-G, old company in Tennessee.
GG.
M-A-R-U-G-G.
That's it?
Yep, Marug.
But I've noticed even in this area, some of the older hardware stores will still have these sitting around on the shelves.
And stones vary greatly. The carborundum stones are perfect stones for bush blades. They're terrible for grass blades. They're just too aggressive. It's a synthetic stone, and I have one somewhere.
And actually,
very coarse.
What Larry's saying, most of the ones I see in the stores around here are carborundum,
Yeah,
and they're not a natural stone.
yeah. That's carborundum right
And you
there.
can
It's very
you can
grainy.
tell. I don't know how. I mean, yeah, you can actually feel the difference if you just run your hand over it. Feel how much smoother this is.
That's a Rosatec there. Talking about that one loading up. You see that?
Oh yeah. So here's an example of one that you can see where it's all shiny, where it's gotten full of metal particles.
Yeah.
And if
But a
this,
carb.
I was just going to say, you can just lay a piece of sandpaper, like the black sandpaper, on a
Mhm.
piece of glass or something, and
Yeah.
just put some water on it, and you can clean all that junk off of your stone and get it in good shape again. Because this also has, if you feel it, it's got some wear in there.
Yep, that comes from sharpening a blade with a little nick in it.
by being smooth like that?
Well, no, you see that you feel this little nick here, right in there.
Little tiny little grooves.
Oh, yeah.
If you start sharpening and you just hit a fence wire or something, you got a little piece of edge rolled out.
But it's nice to dress. They call it dressing the stones to kind of clean them up.
It's funny to do maintenance on your tools. You got to do maintenance on the tools you use to maintain your tools.
Yeah.
It's like there's this unending circle of reconnection in tools, and as we all know, a good tool works well on both ends. It works for the user as well as what
Yeah.
you're using it on.
The time consumption. I mean, now we watch television. Is that better than?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like this circular grinder over here, you know, this is a carborundum stone, and I didn't bring it, but I have a little piece of metal like this, and has about a, I don't know, a 3/4 carat or 1 carat diamond stuck to the end of it. And just periodically, I just run it across the surface, and just bring this stone back into circularity too.
So do you all ever use oil? Do you ever use a stone as well?
If the stone's designed for oil. See, some stones are oil stones and some are water stones. I think most of these natural stones are water stones. Has that been your experience, Larry?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Run them are mostly oil.
yeah, I would say that that's been my experience. And I don't know why that is. I'm sure it has to do with the way the chemical makeup is, but it's basically you just want the stone to keep wearing off so it doesn't get.
I brought a dual grit oil stone and some oil just to show. But if we want to sharpen anything with it.
And if you, I don't know if you can see in the light there, how there's two different grits. And I brought one.
Get a buildup of oil on that? You ever have to clean your oil oil stone?
Get some mineral spirits or something. I'd
Yeah,
say.
you just soak it in something and brush it.
Club soda is what they talk about. That's been supply places.
Club soda?
Yeah, seems to work really good. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess I'll have to try it.
It works like a charm.
How's it with gin?
You know, the problem is that the oil really messes up the drink.
Yeah.
I recommend you make that for yourself and then drink the soda.
Yeah. Somebody had some water somewhere for me.
Oh, I
Where
got
did
it
that
right
go?
here,
Ah,
because that's
thank
where
you.
you were sitting when I
Yeah.
got it.
Great. Thank you, golly. All this talk about gin.
What is all that, man?
That is the slaughter I got from picking the flowers of squashes. We're on a cucumber beetle outbreaks. So by just grabbing the flowers, I got hundreds.
Oh.
Just rolled them up in my hands and mass slaughter. And they were enjoying themselves.
These I find impossible to use.
Yeah. They kind of are. This little hand sickle is a tiny little scythe.
Ooh, that's neat.
And they're handy for hands and knees work. And
And from here to here, basically, you're mimicking what we've been doing with the bigger size.
right,
And then this in here is doing something totally different.
if anything.
If anything, yeah.
They're not easy to sharpen. You use a different kind of stone. You'd use a stone with a narrower face and work it this way, rather than a wider face. Or you can use a carborundum type stone like this to sharpen in the inside curve. But they're handy for some things. But that's just doing a little delicate work in places where you're working literally on your hands and knees. You see that?
I find them pretty frustrating.
They are. It's
Frustrating.
It's just a very limited use thing, and you know, you try to mimic that cut you get with the scythe, and it's one of those tools that you can sort of get some stuff, but working into softer, more succulent type stuff like this, it works really well. But just working around little things, it's just a really
And
hands
I
and
often
knees type
grab a
tool.
bunch when I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's like for harvesting or something, you
Yeah.
do that.
So for that, that's the one use that I think those are nice for. And
Yeah.
and you see they make, is it the Japanese who make ones with little serrations on it?
Yeah. The serrated ones are really great for harvesting. Grab a handful of something and just kind
You
of
just
drift
kind of
through
saw it.
Call that tulo. So,
And what's the hole for?
yeah, just for hanging.
Oh,
And hopefully it's at the balance point. Yeah, kind of the balance
Put your
point.
hammer with it, for your party,
Yeah.
comrade.
Yeah, I mean, probably farmers were not using these extensively. I'm almost sure from the pictures I've seen of Russia, historically they were using the big things.
Yeah, way
But
more.
probably having a big scythe and a small hammer, wouldn't have looked good. I mean, this makes a much better icon.
Right, right.
If,
So any other questions about the scythes? We can tuck those away. Blades vary wildly. The smaller blades, these big blades are upwards of $100, 60 or something for the bush blades. The shorter, smaller ones are just easier to deal with, easier to make, easier to sharpen. Whole manufacturing process. Those are exquisite steel, but blades range 60 to 125 or something. And snaths, my snaths are 125. You can get them for 40. You can get them for 30. The snath comes with the ring, which we also make in this country.
And then the sharpening, what's the package? Do you sell like packages, the stone,
Yeah, it's probably something like a couple of $100 for a snath and a blade. You'll need probably, honestly, 3 blades ultimately. You'll need a bush blade, you'll need a grass blade. And
but I would start with a small blade.
always start with a small blade.
It's way easier to learn on that.
Yeah.
Get your motion down with that blade and then
Yeah.
start working up to a bigger blade.
But something in the 60, 65 centimeter, like the one that was on that snath of mine, is a great grass blade for just trimming around trees and little trimming stuff. This size, this is a bush blade, and this thing literally will cut stuff that big around, stalky, nasty stuff.
Small trees.
Yes.
And I use them to cut trees with. I mean, some field has grown up,
Yeah.
and you want to whack it off. You want to keep cutting that tree off so it doesn't, so it actually dies. Because
Yeah.
if you only cut it off once a year, it's not going to die. It'll say, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is just an excuse." To
And grass blades, I'll find that someone has mowed a place one year with a bush hog, and you've got a little hickory sapling that's that tall, and you go to cut the grass out of it the next year, you'll wreck a grass blade on a tempered hickory sapling that's been sitting there in the soil for a
been
year.
drying out in the sun.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, it's
you got to watch where you're going. Grass blades are delicate.
bush blade even take out that tempered hickory stock?
I think it will. I mean,
Certainly, if you give it the right, if you do your job, it's an amazing tool. I don't say, abuse anything or try to wreck anything. But the other day, I got a new blade. It was a 70 centimeter grass blade. It was a German blade, an SHW. I got it from Earth Tools, and I thought this is not a great grass blade, but it's really an exceptional bush blade. It's a long bush blade. And you can get a big long cut on some stuff. And I was cutting some 1.25 sumac.
Sumac's a fairly soft wood.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
1.25. I mean,
Yeah, that's a pretty good size
It's a
because you
pretty
start
big-
getting the friction on the blade
Yeah.
as you're getting into it.
Yeah, but it does a nice angle cut out of the thing, and it was just amazing. So, any other questions about side stuff? All right.
What's
Fit-
the time check, Lisa?
It is 6:12.
Okay, we got 2 hours. Well, we started a little late, so let's say we have 2 hours.
Okay, yeah, that's no problem. I was going to show about some replacing handles, and I guess you've got some other tools here. I don't know.
Oh yeah, we'll
We
go back
can-
and forth.
We can shift back and forth. I noticed that both of us had one of these,
Yeah.
and it's really nice to be able to whack on stuff and not. And this you can't really buy in the store, right? Actually, you probably can, but I kind of make them, and you probably made yours too.
Real fast.
Yeah, because I mean
Yours
they
is
wear
nice.
out. I mean I use it for fence stakes and everything else. And when
Yeah.
I was a little kid, this was one of the very first tools my grandparents would have me make, And I would use a
Call it a maul,
maul. Some people call them. I think I've heard them called gluts.
a cudgel. They're
Yeah.
various things. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trying to see. I thought I had a draw knife here, but I might not have brought
I
it.
saw one in your car. I know you have.
Yeah, I
one.
might not have brought it. Yeah, draw knife is actually how I make handles for things.
Yeah.
This is a handle which I made. Personally, I like little knobs at the end, which are different than a regular axe handle. Well, some axe handles have kind of knob. Yeah, I guess this has kind
there
of
we
one.
go.
But I like a real solid knob.
A real distinct.
that I can really hold on to and not, you know, so it doesn't fly out of my hand. I just took a regular old axe and cut it out because I find that when I'm felling trees and stuff, and I don't have a chainsaw, so I brought some tools that I can chop a tree down with and that I can cut them up with. And these are really good for cutting trees up with. And I thought what we do is we put some handles on tools, and then if you guys want to at the end, we can show how to sharpen these kind of saws. Because these are amazing. You can cut a nice foot through tree with this without that much work. Mm-hmm. And just like with the scythe, you're not listening to all that, and I find that the time it takes me to get the chainsaw.
The irony. We need to run.
Get off
So I brought a gallery of horrors. I looked around and noticed the repair here. Someone has taken a wire and wrapped this around, and just to try to hold this rake head in here, but not a very good solution. I don't even know where it came from. Let me just unwind it.
It looks like the kind of thing we might have gotten from our barn.
Yeah.
It's definitely been run over.
Yeah, it's been run over too. I'm gonna put a handle in it, and then we'll show you the principle of how to get a handle in it. Let's see. So when you go to the store, if you're not going to make your own handles, there's a lot of different kind of handles, and this is a handle for rakes and hoes. And these kind of handles without the metal ferrule are for shovels. And we'll put a shovel handle in. And then this here is for like a pitchfork and something like that. And all these are available in the store. I went to Home Depot or Lowe's. I guess I went to Lowe's just before I came here and grabbed a few handles just to show different handles that are available, because most people are not going to go to the effort of chopping their tree down and taking a draw knife and cutting it out. It's something I happen to enjoy, but it's not, most of the time you're going to want to, you're not going to want to spend all the time in process. You're going to want to just get something and go for it. And so I think the first thing we'll do is we will do a shovel, which I also observed you can buy a cheap shovel for about $6 at Lowe's, and a shovel handle is around 11 bucks. This one here has it's a name brand on it, Bluegrass, which a lot of people, you know, so that even though it looks like a piece of junk, it's actually a reasonably good shovel. There are a lot of these nowadays. I find they just split down in no time after you get them. So, and Bluegrass actually, are they still in business?
Nope. They were in Louisville for 100 years.
Yeah, so this is a number 2. And I don't know if you know much about shovels, you know, they're 1 through about, what, 4 or 5? But most people buy a number 2 shovel. That's the standard kind. Number 1s are a little bit smaller. You know, as I was saying earlier, if you're shoveling for hours, it's sometimes nicer to have a much lighter shovel rather than a super heavy shovel, because you don't get tired out as much. So let's see, you got a grinder here, and you know what, I'm going to go get some safety glasses, and we'll grind that rivet off, because what you have to do is you have to take this little rivet out, and once you do that, then we can just pound this handle back out, and hopefully it'll happen in a timely manner. So let me get some safety glasses. And
tools that you need to do the work we do, the homestead and gardener type stuff, there's so many things that you need. And the tool without the handle is just a doorstop. You know, the wood, we don't think about it, but the wood is a very, very crucial part of the tool. You want to select your handles when you can and know what to look for. For example, all your striking type tools, your grain should run in line with the strike. The tools you work on this way, you want your grain typically to run in line with this. If you look at wood, the grain of the wood, if you think about bending a deck of cards, you can bend a deck of cards this way, you can't bend a deck of cards that way because of the strength in the grain. You know, you can flex things this way. So you want your grain to run in line with the strike on tools when you can. When you can control that, you should. The more select grains of wood will have a straighter, longer grain in the full length of the body of the wood. Do that when you can, because if you have stuff with sharp runouts in it, it'll do everything in its power to split off at that point.
What he's saying is a good point. I looked at a number of handles in the store today, and there were some that were totally horrendous. Ones that I would be afraid to put on a tool.
Yep.
So did you mention all that already?
Yeah.
About how you
yes.
can see
Right,
diagonal
the
ones like
runouts.
that. And I got a stone out of the car, and this is Carborundum, which is the original brand name.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, just what they had. And this is a draw knife, just to show you how, this is what I typically use to make handles with. And I usually clamp it in a vise and you can, oops, well, that's not very good. Clamp it in a vise and you can just shave off very quickly after you split a handle out. You can shave it off pretty smooth and get it to shape really quick. So let's grind this down. And all I'm going to do is pop that little rivet head off. And hopefully, do you think I guess I should just unplug these guys for a second. So I'm just grinding it off flat. Now, Larry was showing you about the cross peen hammer. There's another kind of peen, and that's called a ball peen hammer. And you can, I'm hitting it just a little, and you can kind of see now where the little shadow of that rivet is coming out. We can take a nail or something and just punch that rivet all the way out. And it used to be, you know, 50 or 100 years ago, you could get rivets really easily in the store. And now they pretty much don't exist, except I guess maybe to put the blades on.
Let me hold that for you.
Yeah, I was going to position it over that hole there. And we'll see. This is not a real good punch, but it's what we've got. And it may not work. Yeah, it's going down a little bit. I may have to go get a bigger
Nail.
punch in the car. Yeah. See if any of these are bigger. That looks a little bit bigger. Or I could just cut the nail off shorter. Are we still over the hole? Yeah, I think I'm just going to cut this nail way shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, where did I put it? I think it's moving.
Yep, the backside's just splitting away.
And I didn't prepare any of this because this is a real life situation. Hopefully by making it much shorter, we'll get it to come through. And you'll see these same rivets on, what do you call it, on hoes and rakes.
There it goes.
And now let's, and forks. Can you hold it there for just a second? I'm gonna.
So you're just using a fairly sturdy nail.
I just cut it a little shorter. Yeah, and I'm just tapping out the old rivet, which, actually I'm gonna put a.
Is there a tool you can buy if you don't have the capacity to cut nails shorter?
Yeah, you can buy a punch.
Just a normal old drifting punch.
Yeah, I'm
There it
just trying to
goes.
show what you're going to do if you're, you know, at home and probably don't have a lot of this stuff. I at home I probably would, you know, I could also use a hacksaw and just cut it off. But just any little piece of steel will work. And then we need to pound it out, and we need to pound it out from here. And once again, we need another punch. And I guess I'm going to go back to the car again and get a piece of rebar out.
I don't think I
Unless
have
you-
anything like a
you have any?
punch.
Let me run and go grab a piece of rebar so we can knock it out. So if you look at these tools here, you can see how this handle, and if you could buy a plastic handle to replace this, it's once again held in with a rivet. I don't know, do they sell metal replacement handles? I
You
guess
can
they must.
buy this whole thing.
Yeah.
You can buy the whole handle. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's what I've seen for sale, the little top with
Little-
this all attached to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, this one is going to be a challenge to get out. I guess this one you have to tap it out from here to get a new handle for that. And you might even want to get a different, let me go grab.
The home shop needs to have a certain amount of tools, and you need to have. There's one of the first things I learned in blacksmithing 30 years ago is if you can't hold it, you can't hit it. Likewise here, you've got to have some anvil under it. You've got to have some punch. You've got to have something to drive it. You've got to have a place for that thing to go. So we had that hole in the stump here for that thing to start to drop into. I brought various tools to make makeshift vices with. If you don't have a bench vise, and some people don't, I can't imagine life without a bench vise. But the bench vise is the ultimate tool to have. Get one for your home shop. It's just one of the most important tools you can own. You got to have something to just grab something and hold it while you affect it with the various tools along the way. But in lieu of that, if you don't have that, there are ways you can create bench vise type things on a picnic table, and I'll show you in just a minute.
Looks like it's coming.
Yep.
Though I'm realizing that this is a pretty big piece of rebar. The temptation is to throw this in a fireplace and burn it out. And the problem with that approach is that you will change the temper of this. And just like a knife blade, this is not tempered as hard as a knife blade, but it is tempered harder than just a regular old piece of steel. You can see where it's starting to slide out now. Hopefully it's going to let loose in a minute.
That's it.
And of course now I hopefully do not stick this. What? And if you notice, I started with a slightly bent piece of rebar to go in here. It just works a little better. Now we've got this tool handle, which is a chunk of ash. And there's various opinions. I like to put the grain so that it's oriented like this. I don't know if what your thoughts on that are?
My thought is usually have the grain vertical.
Okay, well that's exactly what I just did.
Yep.
And that's so the major force is going, so basically the tree is growing around like this.
There's one there.
Yeah. So basically I'm orienting it so the grain this is the line of force is in this direction. And I don't know if you can see that by looking at this, but basically you have narrower lines. So as you're looking at the back of the handle, you want to have narrower lines. One problem you see with commercial shovels is, I mean, you can buy a new shovel and they might have it made such that it'll split right away because they haven't oriented the grain right. Now,
I'm sorry, the line of force is going from the center of the,
so basically you're pulling towards the center of the tree.
okay.
And if you were to make a bow, it would be the same way there. So as you're going to be mostly pulling, you're not going to be pulling a shovel this way. Now the one thing, they sometimes sell curved shovel handles. Another thing which you can do is you can split this down the middle right like this before you put it in a little bit,
Let it go.
so that it goes around the curve. And I think I'm going to do that just so that we don't, so this goes in. So I'm going to take a saw here. You sometimes can find it split. So I'm going to look at this, turn it 90 degrees to this, and as you can see, it's a fair amount of work to put a new handle on a shovel. So make sure you get a good quality one. And the last little bit there. Hopefully this will go around the curve now. And I use my little glut here. And making sure the grain looks good. And then I just take this and I tap it in. And usually I don't even put this on the ground. I like to just hit it and let the momentum of the tool push it in.
Mm-hmm. The handle being the resistance.
Yeah, so
Or the shovel body being the resistance.
yeah, now shovel bodies unfortunately are not very heavy in relation to the handle. And
So what if you said it's like a bucket of sand or something, so you wouldn't hit something hard? Would that give?
Yeah, even though I cut it, it's not wanting to bend. It's bending a little bit. Another problem that happens is they often kiln dry this wood really dry, and that actually makes, if you air dry wood, which is another argument for making your own handles, the wood is actually much, it's a lot more supple.
Yeah, much more able to bend.
And it'll give you more springiness when you're pulling your shovel too, and probably less likely to break
Right.
too. Because probably everyone here, if you've used a shovel for any length of time, has broken the handle.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to put it on the ground now and see if it helps it any.
Oh, it's going now.
Is it went in?
Oh yeah. You
Okay.
got it.
Yeah, the shovel doesn't have enough mass. So now we need to keep it from coming out. And I'm going to drill a little hole here, and we're going to put a rivet, and we're going to make our rivet just out of a nail, because we can't necessarily.
Got
Do you have a rivet?
Yep, got a drill right here.
Okay. Yeah, I've got one somewhere, but
Oh,
if
okay.
you got it,
There you
we'll
go.
use what you got. Let's see. Let's get a big nail. We're just going to cut this off. You say you got a drill we can use? Okay, there it is. Yeah, it's amazing how these drills have evolved in the last
Yeah.
20 years. Hopefully I drilled it the right size for this nail to go through, yeah. So you want a reasonably snug fit. Obviously that's a little bit long, so we're going to take the grinder and grind it off. Okay, now we don't have our anvil here. 100 years ago,
sure
you
we
probably
do.
would have had an anvil, but luckily, I've got this, which can function as an anvil.
You hold that guy? What you
It'll
got?
probably be okay.
Yeah.
So Here, and I cut it a little bit long, but here you want to take the ball end of your ball peen hammer and you want to spread this out a little bit with lots of little tiny taps. And you definitely want to make sure you got something on the other side or else it'll just push through. I cut it a little long so it kind of bent over a little bit. And if you want to, you can go on the other side and you can peen it down too. And you've got a handle that's...
You'll find so many broken shovels for 50 cents at a
you don't
junk
even have to
sale.
pay for them.
Yeah, right.
Somebody
You'll
just gave
find
me
them.
that a couple days ago. I was asking for a broken tool, and I looked around. Saw it was a Bluegrass, which is a really quality American brand that
Well
was
worth saving.
well worth saving.
Yeah.
So, you know, and by looking at it, you know, I saw the name written here. So even though the shovel looks like junk, I know this steel is really good and it will wear and last. I didn't bring it, but I've got a shovel at home, which is one of the cheap $5 ones, and the whole big chunk just broke out of the end of it.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it's amazing what goes down. So that's a shovel handle.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Is this fine?
Ah, you're right.
Would you want?
This
Your
would be
shovel
very
to be like
challenging. So now Diane's asking the utility of this tool. It should definitely be polished up. We could run a wire brush over it or a light sanding or something. We can sharpen the edge of it to get it, and maybe we should do that. You said you had a cup wire brush. We can use
Right
that.
there in the bucket.
And we'll just, I find it most important to have the back side of the shovel polished and only worry about polishing a little bit of the front side, because as you're pushing it down in, you want that whole back side to be smooth. And I don't know that we're going to go over the whole shovel. I'm just going to go over a little bit of it, and we'll just look at that.
And it's easier, better to do it once it's on the handle?
I think it is, just because you can hold it better. But you could put it in a vise in your shop when it's off the handle and work on it that way. So I guess it really doesn't matter in that sense. Definitely want to wear safety glasses with a wire brush.
Oh, it's the devil.
Yeah. I probably would put a sanding wheel on this too before I even started on this, because this has some really serious rust.
Is that rust or cement?
It might be cement.
Yeah.
Actually, it might be. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of
Yeah.
cement on this. Excuse me?
Pitted. It looks like it's pitted.
It is
Yeah.
pitted too, yeah. And you can, I started out holding it like this and realized I would throw junk in you guys' face, so I turned it so that it's going like this and throwing the junk back against the ground. So when you're using these tools, you can also try to think about, you know, any power tool, where is the junk going to go?
You could yank it out of your hands.
What?
You could yank it out of your hands if you got to the edge.
That tool right there has actually put me to the ground before. That cup brush is the most dangerous tool in the shop, in my opinion.
I'm using a very light touch.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not necessarily saying you should start out using a cup brush.
Yeah.
But it is, you know. See when I'm getting up on the edge now? But this is a job for another day to get it totally cleaned off. I like to sharpen them on the back side of the tool. I don't know what you think about
Yep.
that. But that's
Yep, that's
generally
the
I
way.
find that better to put the bevel on this side rather than on this side. I find it's easier going into the ground. I don't know, what's your thought on that, Patrick?
I like the back side.
Okay. I mean, that generally seems to be, and we're going to be sharpening hose the same way too.
Yeah. A shovel is a cutting tool.
Totally.
It's cutting roots. It's cutting grass, sod, you know,
A lot harder for someone.
turf,
Yeah.
soil. It's a cutting tool. No, it's not that fine.
Doesn't need to be that fine.
Yeah.
But like my great uncle who had a nursery, which I worked on when I was a kid, he had a whole bucket full of sand that he had oil in. And every night he would come and he would hit it 4 or 5 times, and that cleaned it, and it got his shovel oiled, and his shovels were just looked perfect, like they just came out of the showroom.
Yeah.
Obviously, if he saw this, he would be horrified and say, "Why are you wasting your time?" But you know, it's just so you can even use a grinder lightly to do this, and you got to be careful because the metal's pretty thin. You can just grind through it.
I use a file. A file should be fine, right?
A file should be fine too. We could
Yep.
use the hand crank grinder
Yep.
over there.
I brought a range of files to show you all the
It's
stuff.
easy to keep a file in your pocket if you're doing work all day and want to keep something sharp with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Run
Well,
back and forth to a stone or something.
Yep.
yeah. Why don't I run get a file out of the car? And
I got
or
a
do you have
pile
one
of them
right
right
here?
here if you
Okay.
want to take a peek at these.
Okay. Yeah. Just.
I just brought a full range of them. Big hungry ones, light ones.
I would say a big hungry one to start with, just because.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to lay it on top of a wooden table over here, basically.
Yeah.
Maybe on top of this bench.
The way to get the rust out would be sandblasted, acid treated,
Yeah.
right?
You know, probably
Rust
I will
is-
just clean it up a little bit and.
Rust is a natural thing. It's going to happen. The minute something is sandblasted, it's going to start rusting immediately. Sandblasting is the most, you know.
Phosphoric acid and then.
Oh yeah.
Well, you could put phosphoric acid on it. Phosphoric acid is pretty amazing because it makes iron phosphate. It turns the surface of any steel into iron phosphate, as opposed to iron oxide, which is rust. And the phosphate bond is much stronger than the oxygen bond. And they have all kinds of products like navel jelly, you guys may have heard of, or Ospo or Jasco. Each company has their own name. But basically, phosphoric acid looks like green water. And you can just wipe it on, and it makes this little microscopic layer of iron phosphate. It's expensive. It's like probably $15 a quart. But if you're careful with it, it'll go a long way.
I've had a gallon since the late 80s.
Yeah, I know. I have a
I'm
quart.
down about this, you know.
I have a quart of it, and I just use it. Yeah, I mean, pretty much everyone I know. So when I'm sharpening this, I'm not just sharpening in one spot. I'm actually rolling it around because I want to maintain that nice, that, what do you call it? I don't want to have a bunch of flat spots on it and stuff. But by keeping it sharp, you know, if you hit roots and grass roots and other stuff, and this is severely pitted, as was pointed out. And files are only pushed. They're never pulled. If you pull them towards you, the teeth are all oriented zigzaggy, so if you pull it back, you actually break the teeth off. So if you watch what I'm doing, I'm actually lifting it up on the return stroke. Your file will last way longer. You get way more cutting out of it. It'll take a whole lot less energy.
Files are incredibly expensive. Good files. That file is probably $30.
So, so this is a Nicholson, which is the name American brand. You can buy a cheapy Chinese one of these for $3, and you'll get about 2 uses out of it if you're lucky. The other thing I've noticed about the cheapy Chinese ones, and apparently they're actually just putting a case hardened skin on. They're not making the whole thing out of steel anymore. And that also means that, you know, once you get through that, the whole file just dulls out in no time. Oops. Let's bring it forward a little bit more, and maybe that'll lock right there. Yeah. If you're doing the file as opposed to the grinder, you're not going to have near as much trouble with messing it up. But should we try to dig a hole in your lawn, Patrick?
Yeah, sure. I'll take a look at it.
I mean, since we already chopped down your field, which you didn't want chopped down.
Chop up the lawn. What the heck?
Yeah, we need to make some gopher holes here. And this is how you break your shovel handles, by pulling on it like this.
Yep. Yep.
But
That one's got a little bit of time left in it though.
But everyone does that. And I'm also hitting a rock.
Yeah.
How would you prepare the handle?
If I break it?
No, linseed oil.
It's just raw naked now.
Oh, yeah. You could wipe like boiled linseed oil on it.
I use a mixture of 50-50 boiled linseed oil and turpentine. That thins
That
the
soaks it out.
it-
That
it-
lets it soak in more.
Yeah, it thins the boiled linseed oil. You buy boiled or raw linseed oil. Do not boil your own. And people ask me that. Oh, do I boil it? How do you boil it? Double boil it? No. But yeah, boiled linseed oil, buy a quart of that and a quart of turpentine, mix it 50-50. Anything, any rag you use with that becomes spontaneously combustible. Don't forget. Don't store your rags under your mattress.
Don't put them in a trash can. Either burn them immediately.
Yeah,
Okay.
spontaneous
Or
combustion.
hang it out over a line.
Yeah. Till
Because
it's-
what happens is the oxygen starts to combine, it cross-links it and turns it into a polymer. And then it's a kind of chain reaction. If it's all in a big ball, it makes a little bit of heat. It makes more and more heat. And I know one friend of mine managed to burn part of their house down. They had just oiled their floors, and they threw all the rags in the heap of the corner of the porch. They were so happy. They went out to dinner, and they came back, and the neighbors had called the fire department.
Yeah. I tested it one day. I use a lot of this at work, and I just soaked a bunch of rags. I rolled them up, and I wrapped them with tape and put them in a paper bag and threw them out on the sidewalk outside the shop. In about an hour, it lit up in the summer. It just lit up.
I keep mine in the freezer.
Yeah, good idea.
Good tight Ziploc
But-
bag. It's just in the freezer.
But I soak.
The boiled oil, the raw stuff takes forever to dry.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
dry,
It
right?
takes a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking weeks.
Yeah.
Um,
And what's the benefit of any, if any, of raw linseed oil, or just specific
Yeah.
tasks?
I have no
Um,
idea.
People, I think, use the raw on like leather and stuff to keep it more supple.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what I hear. You know, so
So not a lot of benefit really. Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say a lot of benefit. So I've got a hoe that I realize is pretty funky, but it was already out of its handle. And as you can see, once again, it has a hole in it. And we're going to try to match that hole up through here. We could just pound it on, which may be something to do. And it depends, I guess, on how much you're pulling on it.
Hose
But-
heads come off all the time when you're using hard. If
Yeah.
you know but that kind of hose is a chopping hose, and you can take the heads off them pretty easy. You know?
Yeah. So
Cultivating hose, there's not nearly as much pressure on them, but a chopping hose like that, boy, you can pull them off pretty quick.
So the first thing is we're looking at the size here. And actually the size is pretty close. It's interesting. I thought I was going to have to drill this one.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to measure up and see from a point here to a point here. So we'll know where to drill this, and hopefully we can get that in. Once again, I'm looking at the grain on this, and I just intuitively I like to look at the really narrow lines facing it as opposed to these really wide lines. But I'm not sure it matters as much on a hoe because you're not really prying on the hoe. Unless you got that groundhog which is down in there and you're just using whatever tool to try to get the groundhog.
So now why, the handle's made now, is that when you're making it, you're saying, or?
Or no, but I'm saying when you get a handle from the store, you can look at it, and by orienting the grain, the handle's actually stronger in one direction than the other.
I got it, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
You want your grain laid this way, like a deck of cards. You want that grain running this way.
so that the direction of the force you're pushing on, you're wanting to push on this as opposed to pushing on this. And you can easily see you've got these really wide things here and narrow things here. So usually what I tell people is to just try to keep those narrow things up because that can take a whole lot more force before you break the handle.
Okay.
And you know, as much fun as it is to put new handles on tools, you know, I would prefer to try to make them last as long as possible.
I can find consensus in this group.
So I'm going to make a mark on this, and I'm going to look at the grain here. And if you guys want to look at this handle here and see if you can pick the grain out and see which way you might orient this. And as I say, these are handles I just picked up a few hours ago. And I just grabbed some just random stuff to do this with, just so that I would have what I call a real world situation. So what I'm doing is I'm marking the end of this, so this is flush with the end, and I'm marking where I want the center of the hole. So I've marked here and here, and you can see, so I'm going to drill a hole right through the center of this so that I can actually catch it with a little rivet. And presumably I'll be able to, and I'm also observing that when this is straight across, this hole is up, because I want to try to be able to get that hole when I'm doing this. And I'm going to once again use my little blocker thing and gently try to tap it in here. And I'm keeping an eye on my pencil line so that it lines up. Now I could drill a brand new hole through that handle tang, but then it makes it weaker and weaker. So if I can line it up with the existing hole, it's way better. And now I'm going to just, were you thinking of clamping it somehow? Or?
No, I was just setting this up for
Okay.
a future thing.
Okay. So I've got my pencil line here. I'm going to set the drill on fast. And this is where and amazingly enough, it went right through the hole. Luck, first time. But sometimes you're not so lucky. Sometimes you'll be saying bad words. And once again, you know, you just put your little rivet through it. We'll tap it down. And then I could get a big pair of pliers. But since I don't have one here, I'm just going to grind it off again and rivet it over.
Got the appropriate one plugged in.
We did make some very light snacks. I'm thinking there's a lot to show. I'm wondering if people don't need to, if we just bring them down and people kind of munch while we learn and work. Does that sound good? I think it's all about you just got pops and popcorn and that's it.
Okay.
Okay with butter on the popcorn?
That sounds good. So you can see what I did. I didn't hold this thing solid on it. You see how there's a gap there? But I think I can still resurrect that. I'm just going to put this over the edge, tap it down again. I'm going to try to turn this way. If you've got an anvil, it's way easier with an anvil. But as I say, I'm trying to do this for tools you might have. So other than the hoe being a little bit bent, that's a way to put the hoe on. The rake is going to be basically the identical process. We're going to take it off. Hopefully there's a hole in it. And we'll see. Why don't we just take this apart and just look at it and see what we've got hidden underneath here.
It never looked like there was not parallel grain all the way around. Is there a kind of wood that?
You mean when you looked at this?
No, it was this one. Was it this one? Just all the way around. It looks parallel.
Look at the end.
Okay.
You can always see the
And
grain
as you
at
can
the
see,
end.
they've got the grain running at some weird skewed angle. This, unfortunately, you don't have a choice. Actually, you know, you're forced to buy these pickaxe heads like this, and they make a one-size-fits-all. So, you know, you can tap it down.
Yeah.
Now,
Anytime you can choose your handles,
this one
you
needs to
should.
be sawn off, and usually I like to leave, I don't know, about maybe a 1/4 inch, but no more than that, because as you're digging in the ground, this will interfere with it. Historically, people would heat these up in the forge and pound them out red hot to pull them out. A sharp pickaxe, just like a sharp shovel, makes a huge difference. Now, I would say it's hard to find someone to do that. I don't know.
Got to call a blacksmith.
Yeah, you can get, if you can find a blacksmith to do it, yeah, get them to do it, and they can actually pull it out and pull this point out and save the metal. Though I will say that, 100 years ago, before the advent of backhoes and other stuff, I mean, these were basically did all kinds of things. Now they're not used a lot, but I mean, it's still handy to be able to do stuff once in a while.
So what about on that tool? Lots of times I have a hard time, the head doesn't want to stay tight. People use wedges. Have you have any advice on that, getting the head to stay tight?
Shape it properly. It's
Right.
got a certain angle of taper. If the head and the handle have to match, so everything tightens
Yeah.
up all at once.
And this one, you can see it's tight here, but not really tight here. You can
So
see the
if it
huge
can
gaps.
rock,
So you could take your pocket knife and shave it down. The way my grandfather always did is he'd take a piece of broken window glass and shave it. That way you don't go too far, because really you're not taking that much off. You can pound it on, and then we can pound it back out, and you can look at it. And this one already has a little bit of a lip on it, so we could carve off that lip. But you can kind of see a polished section like right there. So I would, if I were going to do it, I would just shave a little bit of that polished section right off.
and where this edge is here, you see where it's cut in, you can get rid of that up there and let
Yeah.
it go a little higher up too.
So we'll just get rid of that and see if we can get this to fit a little bit better. You want to do all your fitting before you cut it off, because obviously, and the reason I like to leave it a little bit longer is sometimes it actually shrinks up a little bit, and it goes without saying, you really never want your tool handles to get wet. I'm keeping this in the same orientation here. I don't want it to flip around because this may not be symmetrical. You can mark it if you want to, some way or another.
Can you clean out the edge of those somewhere?
These ends here,
Only with heat.
these you have to heat up red hot to peen them out and or draw them out. And that's the way, I remember I think it was 1990, I helped scrap out the railroad shop at Martinsburg, the first B&O railroad yard outside of Baltimore. And they had a machine there that did nothing but point these pickaxes.
Yeah.
And it was a humongous machine. It weighed about 11,000 pounds. You'd get them red hot. And that was the day before backhoes, when every single one of those railroad cuts was made by hand with pickaxes. And therefore, they had to have probably hundreds of pickaxes to do that. And I can't say we're any better, but let me tap it down a little more. If we were to use a metal hammer on this, we would be splitting this, and it would make it much worse. You know, that's one advantage. You can whack a lot with a chunk of wood and not really damage it as much as you can. So you can see the old line was right there, and it's moved down to this new line a little further down. And if we were to continue this process, and this is the kind of thing where you're just sitting around in the evening and just taking the patience to just fit it perfectly. And then my guess is if you do that, this thing will fit really nice. But there's no way that I know of to put wedges in these.
I see people doing them, but I don't see them work very well.
They're not going to work.
No.
But I will show you a
Can't
tool
wedge
that we
that
can put a
on.
wedge in. And that's this here. This is our sledgehammer. And these eyes, if you were to open them up, are shaped like an hourglass on the inside. So the first thing I do is I whack it down pretty good. And you can, I don't know if you could hear the difference in tone.
Yeah.
I'll tap it on again. But, and you notice I don't stick it on the ground. These are heavy enough you can just pound the handle right into it. I find if you try to stick it on something, often the handles end up a lot more crooked. than if you do it otherwise. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to take a saw and I'm going to cut this off. And then I'm going to drive some wedges in, because you don't want to drive the wedges in. The problem is if it's sticking way up there, it's going to get caught on stuff. So you want to trim it down a little bit. Oops.
Well, I need that for my hatchet, don't I? I need one of those whackers. Because what I've been doing is banging the flat end of my hatchet on.
You can do that, and it actually accomplishes the same thing. But I think you get a lot more control by holding it straight down and tapping the top. I don't know, what do you think about that?
I agree. Yeah, just having that out in the air. If you sit it somewhere, it's going to go one way or another more.
It's hard to get it to
always
be
does.
exactly in line with the head. Now this head here does not have a split in it. Some of them in the car I have already have splits in them. Or I might have brought some over. Now when I go to buy wedges, you know, they're 30, 40 cents a piece. So what I do is I buy a whole assortment of sizes of wedges, all the way from really big ones to really teeny ones. And I often use more than one wedge.
Where can you get good wedges?
The place I get them is the hardware store in Mars Hill. I'm sure the True Value in Asheville has them too. And you used to be able to get them in Burnsville, but Burnsville Furniture and Hardware shut down. So it's I think it's a True Value, but I think Ace. They all should have them, you know, and they're in the little drawers. And usually what I like to do is first I like to split it sideways, and then I'll put one in each end to roll it around on the end. And you can see where there's a gap around here on the side here. So I'm going to try to fill that up so it doesn't fly off the handle. Not a good thing, especially when you get, I don't know, that sledgehammer is probably around 6 or 8 pounds. If you're swinging and got that going, it could really, really cause some damage. Do you have any opinion on putting wedges in?
I like to put them in line with the grain. If you just so happen.
And this way,
yeah,
the grain is
and
running.
See, that's a drag, because, you know, ideally you should choose all your handles with the grain running in line with the striking tool. Ideally, but you can't do that.
And they just throw this into a machine. They got a guy who's being paid minimum wage. He has a whole bundle of sticks. I've been in the factory. They throw it into a machine, and whatever way they happen to end up is the way it ends up.
Yeah. So if you go across the grain, you split it that way, and then, like with this one,
I'm
would
seeing
probably,
the grain is running this way.
Yeah, I would probably put them diagonally with the grain.
Okay.
That one. Ideally, your grain should be running in line with the strike, and you've got a slit in there for a wooden wedge. But if you split the grain across itself, I always think that's worse than splitting it with itself. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Well, I'm going to stick a second one in
Yep.
here.
Yep.
A smaller one.
Yep.
You can put too many wedges in.
Yeah.
You can totally destroy the wood fiber.
Yeah.
Stick in just enough to hold it tight. So I guess I should have showed it to you first, but there were gaps around the side. Now all the gaps are gone.
Yeah.
Don't ever stick your tool in a bucket of water to tighten up the head, because my granddad did it. I mean, I watched him. And the problem is, you know, the wood swells up and crushes, and then when it dries out, it gets even smaller. But, you know, it's just something not to do.
Rain, then it's always up.
Right.
Yeah, but it just...
I soak all of my tool handles in linseed oil and turpentine for as much as a week. Everything.
Yeah,
And it drinks up into there, and it keeps water out. That oil keeps water from going in. And well, on the broad fork handles and the snats, all of those ends, particularly the snats, because they're in water all the time. You cut
when you're
grass in the morning in the dew, and those things will split.
And another thing which I see happen all the time is people set a tool like this down in a shed, and it just sucks the water right up in the end grain, and it gets rotten right there, and then the head just pops off.
Yep.
So if you can, stand it up like this, so at least that end will get rotten, or better yet, hang it up on the wall,
Yeah.
or something. But if you sit it on the end, and that's actually already happened to this pickaxe.
tools are such an investment. Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
see this one, it's been sitting in the water. And you can see actually how much I moved it down with that little pounding. And it'll. That's why I'm saying don't cut it off until you get it actually fitted totally, because this thing might move down another ½ inch by the time you get it fit right.
And how can you tell whether cracks like this are gonna matter?
Well, as I say, this tool has been abused, and you can see there's now bug holes in it and stuff. I mean, probably, you know, it still feels pretty solid to me, so it's probably okay. But it has gotten wet and other stuff and been mistreated. And as I say, I brought in some tools that are in bad shape rather than tools that are in perfect shape, just so you can see, you know, where you work from there. So Pat, were you wanting to take a minute break?
We can break for a couple minutes so you get to eat too, but let's just keep it down to about 5 or so. 'Cause there's a lot
Okay.
to cover yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some unexciting tahini dip made on the fly, and some popcorn and some fresh carrots and cucumbers.
Oh,
So just, this is probably 65 cents, this is probably 45 cents. You know, just buy a handful, keep them in a bag. I keep them all the time, that way I'm tempted to not just take an old nail and put it in the end, or,
right.
which
So
is,
any old hammer, I mean not any old hammer, a common hammer is what you use to hammer this.
yeah, any hammer will work on it. That's correct, yeah. The rake handle is exactly the same process as what we just did with riveting and drilling. So I'm not sure that it's worth to do that one too, because it's, you know, I think you guys basically have the, unless someone wants me to see it done. And I don't know if this would be too light duty to put in this or not. What do you think?
How much you, well, look at the handle first. How's the handle quality? That grain is that way, which is directly sideways. That's the,
No, actually it's pretty good, because this is where it curves up, it'd be where it's off by about 10 degrees from what I'm
Okay.
seeing.
all right.
So this one they got pretty close.
Yeah,
Just luck of the draw.
look at the draw.
Yeah, if we can put that handle on instead, I think it'd be far better.
Okay. So Patrick has presented me with this tool, which is, and it looks like it's got a little, do you have a crescent wrench here or something? Or should I run
Right
get one out of the
here.
car? Yeah, let's see if we can get this loose. And so he's been having this wobbly tool.
It's actually Diane's.
Okay.
Diane's got a wobbly tool.
Oh, so now he's blaming his wife.
Well, she got a great fork here, but she thought she could get a handle for it here. And that one was easy as she thought. She did with those people coming from across from Europe.
You got a pair of pliers, or should I run?
I've got vice grips.
Okay, why don't I use that on the other side? So this handle's not broken, but apparently it's pretty clunky to use.
Oh, that's walled out in there.
Yeah, and that's, you know, if it's gotten wet, and I think probably, so what I was suggesting, if they just wanted to keep the original handle, was to cut some splinters of locust or something like that and soak them in linseed oil and pound them in, and then they kind of glue themselves in. Is that, can you think of another good solution? Or?
That's about as good as it gets. That's a really good solution.
Say about the weed
The irony.
What's this? Oh, the weed eater.
Well, they've got word to stay far away.
Let's see, where did my little blocker go? There it is. Yep, didn't even have to block it
Wasn't
up.
in there very well, was it?
That was pretty loose.
You can tell whoever put this in spent a lot of time trying to center that hole.
Yeah.
They should go unnamed.
What'd you say?
I said they should go unnamed.
Oh, no, I think it was the manufacturer.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, yeah, a true
That was
confession.
not by me, by somebody I asked to do it who just didn't know tools, didn't know these kind of tools. He knows
Sure.
metal tools big time, but doesn't know wood tools.
Well, the one thing I'm seeing though with this, probably,
It's too small.
would you burn this in, or what would you do? That might destroy the wood. It's actually it's
Yeah.
actually a tricky thing to
Ooh,
get this round thing in there. Let me get the biggest drill that we've got here.
That
See,
That would either be,
biggest metal drill bit. I'm not going to use a wood drill bit on that because
yeah,
the and that's still a little bit small. So probably what I'd want to do would be to get, though actually this one might be able to be forced in.
So the issue is that it's so big, the tang, is that called a tang?
This is
It
the
is.
tang, yeah.
The tang is so big that you would split the wood if you just hammered it in.
into that particular handle probably.
And I'm not sure you even get it in there.
That's about as big a handle as I've ever been able to find. That this is actually a fence post handle.
Mm-hmm.
No, fence post digger, a handle for a fence post digger.
Oh, for a
Yeah.
post hole
digger.
digger.
Post hole digger, yeah.
I'd say let's drill this out and try to tap it in and see how it works. Let's see.
Access to handles, Dixie Handle Company in Waynesboro, Tennessee, has an amazing selection of anything. He's a good friend of mine. He's where I get all my broad fork handles from him. They've been in business making handles since 1903. Dixie Handle Company in Waynesboro, Tennessee. Dixie, just D-I-X-I-E, Handle Company, Waynesboro, W-A-Y-N-E-S, B-O-R-O. And Mike's number is?
So I find I was breaking PV handles all the time, so I split this out of locust to get a good piece of locust, oriented the grain right, and then ended up, because I find it's really handy to be able to roll logs around too. And this was a handle that, this one I just draw knifed out. As you can see, I didn't bother to, this is just straight off the draw knife, and you can see all the little flats. And I put Elvis on the top. Now this is the young Elvis before he got all strung out on
Thank you
booze
very
and-
much.
well, before he was all strung out in booze and pills. But so when I tell my associates that we're working together, I said, go get Elvis. They know to get the big PV because most of them have much shorter things.
He's right there.
Say it out loud.
931 722 3395.
So most of these cordless drills only go up to 1/2 inch. You can't put a big drill in, so you have to buy reduced shanked bits, which allows you to drill big holes with little drills. Since it seems like everyone is using cordless drills these days rather than, and I only need to go in about 3/4 of the way of this bit to get it in here. Now one thing I'm going to do, because this is rectangular and rather than rather than square, I'm going to go sideways and I'm going to take the drill, and this is not recommended by the drill manufacturer at all.
Do not try this at home.
Yeah. So I'm looking down and making sure I've got the curve right, and I'm actually going to push this a little bit sideways this way and a little bit sideways this way. And this is going to try to imitate this thing to make it closer to this rectangular hole, so hopefully we can get it to fit in there. And I'm trying to make the curve go up with it. And I'm just showing you things you can do when you don't have the right tool. Ideally, we'd get a tool called a broach and broach this out, or a little tiny, what do you call it? They make little saw blades that, or a little file you can just pull in there and you can hook it out and you can make the hole rectangular. I didn't happen to bring one of those with me, so that's what we're going to do because we've got it. And as I say, most people won't even have that tool. And I see another problem, that the metal is bigger than this. So do you have your files here still?
Yeah.
Do you have a small square file
Sure. I got a big square file.
or a big square file?
Let's see what I got here. Got triangular. There. Well, that's the one right there.
So once again, I'm going to look at this. I'm trying to, and I'm just going to try to take those 4 corners out. And my power stroke is only on the end stroke. And I'm just looking at this again and getting this, trying to get it lined up as well as possible. And at the same time, I'm actually getting the wood a little bit squarer too. So this is yet another.
You put that up on the table, I'll hold it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to. Let's see. So is this straight up and down?
Looks fairly close. One of the first things you learn in blacksmithing is if you can't hold it, you can't hit it. And I carry that with me in everything I do. You know, if it's out of control and you're trying to get a nice, accurate cut on it, it's really difficult. I love securing things and clamping things down. Yeah, I want to show that just as my little clamping rig over here. I'll set it up in a minute and show you.
I was going to say we could use it to sharpen the saw blade with.
Yeah, that's exactly
if people
right.
want to see saw blades sharpened.
Yeah.
So as you can see, the hole is not perfectly rectangular, but we're heading in that direction.
Give it one more second there. Just be okay.
And I'm just looking at this. So we're actually able to get, and I'm looking at this here, and I'm seeing that I need to take a little bit more off of this one corner here. Pat, you willing to hold that for a second? I will. I'm going to put it up on the table. I've got my thumb on that one corner. The problem is there are zillions of different kinds of tools, and they were made over a long period of time, and they're trying to make like 4 standard handles. When you go to the store, it's not a very big selection of handles. I'm going to try once again to just tap on this and get it to drive on. Let's see, where did I put this thing here? Pat, do you mind just standing on that? Just stand right here. So you do not get impaled, obviously.
Yeah, drive that right through the top of your foot.
I don't know if it's going on it. Okay. We're going a little crooked, but hopefully it'll straighten out once we get in a little deeper. And it may need to have a lot more time spent with
Maybe we just do it any time.
yeah, we'll give it another couple minutes. Is it going in at all?
A little bit.
It's a musical instrument.
Yeah, this thing is a tuning fork, and I can, every time I hit it, I can feel it continuing to vibrate in my hand. Excuse me?
It's almost 8440.
Yeah, I mean, it's still vibrating.
Oh yeah.
I think
Wow.
probably we're going to have
Out
to
of
get,
focus.
and I do have a little tiny wood chisel in the car, and I think that's what I'm going to get and just chisel that square.
So why don't we do that for another time rather than make, this is not really a kind of a specialized issue. right?
But it is, but you can see that you've got this old tool and you want to get a handle for it. Because and this is a nice tool here.
That it really is.
Because, and you can, and this is something to look at when you're seeing this, as opposed to these being welded on, this was actually forged out of one piece of steel.
Mm-hmm.
We had another fork over here, and this is all just pieces, there's just 2 little tiny, essentially spot welds holding this on.
Ain't gonna last.
This is not going to last with any kind of serious use. So, when I look at this, I feel that you got a much better forging, and they've also, this is also a very nice thing where they've actually forged a taper into this in both directions. which gives your, you know, you need more strength here and need less and less strength as you go along. So to me, this is a real quality tool, and there's no reason to get rid of it. Whereas this one here, you know, and you could, I mean, I don't know whose this is. I don't really want to insult it, but you know,
it's mine. Insult the heck out of it.
it's got a plastic handle. It's just spot welded together. You know, I mean, this is what, $9.99 at Lowe's.
Oh, I got it for $1 a yard. So.
Okay, but still, it's not. You know, I would spend my time fixing this tool rather than this one.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
If I were going to spend time fixing a tool. But I'll get a chisel out and maybe we'll, Larry, did you want to show what you got over there?
Oh yeah, just a way to hold something. If you just trying to think out of the box, so many times you have something you're trying to do. If you can't hold it, get it steady. You're working yourself to death trying to just hang on to whatever. But if you have just one of the things I always say in my shop is an assistant is only worth his weight in C-clamps. You can replace anyone with enough C-clamps, and so just some way to hold stuff. And the more bizarre the way you can hold stuff, vice grip makes amazing tools. It's not just this, you know, everybody, you think vice grip, that's the classic vice grip tool. This is one of the coolest vice grip things ever made. And there are a variety of different types of clamping devices. If you're working by yourself and you can't get somebody to hold the other end of something, you can take something and put it on there. If I'm trying to, yeah, a saw
well,
is perfect.
as soon as I saw that, I said, okay, this is how we're going to sharpen our saw.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a nice thing here we can clamp it to. We can
Yep.
work on a section of the saw. And,
Yep.
and in a little bit, we will talk about sharpening saws if you guys want to hear about that.
But this is just one of the, I like to show this tool because so few people have ever seen this. But if you have something really odd you want to hold, you can take this, wrap this chain around it, and set that, and you can hold that. Now we've got a thing here we can work on to, for example, you got a hoe head or something?
Yeah, there's this
Or a
rake head. Let me
shovel
just
or-
knock this rake head out.
Or no, I was just thinking specifically a hoe
Well,
head.
oh, well, I already put the hoe head in.
Yeah, or that. If you
Yeah,
want to
let's-
sharpen an edge of a shovel, you've got a place now you can clamp it down this way or that way using something like so to hold it on there, so you can get at it. That's, you know, it's just kind of thinking out of the box, you know, to work that, to file the edge of that shovel. You can, with a couple of clamps, you can create a fixture to do something that you just, you know, how in the world do you hold that so that you can effectively cut that with a file? But I just wanted to illustrate, you know, this. And when you are sharpening a knife, if you just have something like this, you can clamp that too, and you can file the edge of a knife or a, you know, a rough cutting type tool. Those little hand sickles also, you can just clamp that into a jig like that to hold it. But with enough oddball clamps like this, and it makes a great filing clamp too for a saw.
It's definitely worth spending a few bucks more on getting the Irwin brand.
Yeah,
grip,
yeah.
the knockoff.
Yeah, these, you know, I've got some old ones that date back to,
Well, this is a vice grip brand.
Yep.
I have noticed that most of the off-brand ones do not work very well.
Yeah, they flex too much. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, there are
Yeah.
a few off-brands that actually do work well, but in general, you know, the vice grip logo, which these all seem to have.
real vice grip.
Mhm. And I find being able to reach over something and clamp it in like that too, this just makes a really great tool. And this tool is more of a welding holding clamp with the smaller, more indelicate tips. This is more of a clamping for wood or sheet metal or something. So anyway, I just wanted to see that. A blacksmith invented these things, you know.
Yeah, a guy named Peterson,
Yeah.
if I remember.
And
Yep.
all of those guys have the little screw
Yep,
down thing.
just as a cam
Yeah.
kind of locking thing here.
Center lever. That's
And the other thing I've noticed with the off-brand ones is that
the finger.
these do not seem to destroy my fingers. A lot of the off-brand ones, you try to release them, and they just snap your fingers and hurt
Yeah.
really badly.
Yeah.
Which to me is very maddening because if your fingers are all fuzzy, you know, you're not going to want to be as inclined to do something.
So anyway, just wanted to show.
All sorts of shapes.
Oh yeah, just with scraps of
Sheet
steel.
metal, you know, with the broad.
Oh, yeah,
oh
big,
yeah,
long things.
I've got them with
Yeah.
really wide bills that are
Yeah,
like
the
this
big
wide.
2 inches.
And you can really squeeze the crap out of something with a good clamp. This kind of thing here is, you know, typically when somebody sees, you know, I'm buying a clamp, this does nothing.
Well, you can.
You know,
put-
these kind of things here, you know, you can. That's just to kind of hold it in one spot. It doesn't really
you
secure
could just-
anything.
pull it off the table.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's clamping it down. We'll see if we can clamp it how tight we can. You're right. You just can't hold anything.
Yeah.
The thing you have the seat clamp holding against the picnic table, is that called angle iron?
Yep, that is angle
Yeah.
iron. That is just square tubing.
Square tubing.
Yeah. But with these long things, you can reach inside that and hold something several inches in. But you know, the odd shapes are nice. You always need a weird one every now and then. And good quality C-clamps also. These are fantastic old C-clamps. Those are my first ones. I got those 30 years ago. They've been in use every day for decades.
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, buy a couple good C clamps because the cheap ones also twist out.
Just another thing in general in shop stuff, I keep kind of 3 sets of screwdrivers. This level is just for opening paint cans, and this level is for turning some screws occasionally, but I keep a really nice set of Klein screwdrivers, electrician screwdrivers. Whenever possible, just general shop stuff for fixing things, whenever possible, use a fitted wrench for anything you do. An adjustable wrench is number 2. The size of the wrench is variant on the size of, of the work you're doing. You'll find new stuff like these, something in the air all of a sudden. New ones like this are not maintainable, okay? There's a little knob right there, and you can see that little strike line on either side of it. That means that this has been peened in, so you can't remove that little plug to take any of this apart to lubricate it. These you can. Those are screw heads in there. So these old ones, you can actually take this stuff apart, and if I had a small screwdriver, I would just show you how it
I'm
works.
gonna run and get one.
You got one?
Yeah, I got one.
I don't have one small enough.
Pretty sure I got one small enough.
But you can find these old ones, you know, at a yard sale for just a few bucks because they're rusty and they're not chrome anymore. But you can take that apart. You can take this out. You can take this out, lubricate them, clean them up, and they're slick. They work great. They hold better when you can move them more easily. They're just better tools, but they'll have a soak them. That's a good one. You know, that's fairly safe.
To use that correctly, you have to put this towards the. If
Yeah,
you're
this-
tightening, this jaw always goes that way, and then people start banging on this, and that loosens the channel.
Yeah.
That ruins the channel, and it gets loose.
This wrench here actually has an arrow stamped into it, pointing in the direction you're pushing. Have you ever seen those?
Yeah.
It has a little arrow to point it that way.
Wow.
Yeah, these are great. This was a great find.
They crescent,
Yep, they're both crescent.
days and
Yeah,
so maybe they check the name.
yeah. Cooper Tool Company makes it. Cooper Tool is like Beatrice or Kraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's just stamped out by the zillions from China.
Adjustable wrench with a hammer on the backside. Well, it's always there.
They
Like a hammer.
probably make one. You know, I don't know. I'm more specific in my tools.
I grind it.
Yeah.
Oh, you were talking about the.
Let me see if this will fit. I'm not sure it will or not.
Either one.
shovel blade?
Oh yeah.
Bluegrass was good brand.
Oh yes,
Old
old
Oh yeah, I've
But
got
what are
got
some other
bluegrass
old
hatchets.
hammers.
Yeah,
What
they
are
made
some other
hammers,
old-time
hatchets.
brands that we're likely to find in the southeast?
Stanley.
Oh, here we go.
Stanley, old Stanley.
This is all.
The old Stanley.
Here, this just comes out. It's just a long screw. It's just threaded right there on the end. It's smooth otherwise. Then this pulls out, and that slides out. And you can lubricate all of the ways in there, and it just smooths out the tool so well. But you can't do that with new ones. They seal those things in there, and you can't get them
Well,
out.
the other thing I do is I like to take it apart and take burrs that build up on these off.
Yes. Yeah.
Because often burrs, if you're working on something and really having to struggle with it, you can often raise up a burr. This one doesn't
On
have
those
too much on
faces.
it, but
Yeah.
and it's good to be able to just clean up the faces.
Yeah.
So can we do a little momentary time check? I'm assuming we'll go to about 8:15. We'll start at about 4:15.
It's
So we
quarter
have
of
about
what?
half an hour left.
Okay,
I know that
Um,
Diane was hoping that the broad fork could get talked about a little bit.
Oh yeah.
okay. Talk about
Here's
those
the-
in-
Show saw sharpening, is that right, Barron?
I can show about saw sharpening or
Do we want to be expeditious? 'Cause
axe
it's
sharpening. I mean,
gonna get dark and I won't be able to see.
is it the ratchet letting go?
Yeah. Something's not working.
Yeah,
Oh,
this
that.
is it's
Gotcha.
a crazy thing.
Wow.
It's one of these universal screwdrivers, but it's too universal.
There. Oh yeah.
Um,
So that's the one I ground down already.
Yeah.
Burr on that side. Yeah.
Did you have that same problem?
Yep.
So let's see. What did you just mention about?
No, I
Oh,
said
oh, the broad.
Saw sharpening and broad fork are two things.
Okay.
I wanted to show one other type of clamp. This is a metal clamp that gives you the same sort of reach as that plastic one did, but these are a lot stronger.
But the difference is this is about $30.
Yeah.
I've got maybe 4 of these in the shop.
Yep.
Um,
But sometimes you run into them and people don't know what they are.
yeah. Well, you're right. I found a Brunsford hatchet at a yard sale
Alright.
once.
If you would also just talk about how to, not do it, but just how you would change that out.
Wow.
Now this one is more of a challenge because there's no way to pound it out from the other end.
Yeah.
I still would grind this rivet off. Probably what I would do is I would take the biggest paddle bit I could and try to drill it out. And then I would try to take a screwdriver and pry a piece off and grab it with a pair of
Mhm.
needle nose pliers and try to pull it out.
Back fork screw. Or screw.
Actually, a screw is a good
A
idea.
lag screw down into
Yeah,
it?
you could put a lag screw in it. I'd pre-drill the lag screw to close to the root diameter of the thread, and a pretty long one. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good
Might you
idea.
heat it a little so this gets a little more expanded?
You
I mean,
could.
not a lot.
I don't know how much temper. Well, and actually, you could do what I said before. If you're not in a huge rush, is put it in a bucket of water and let this sucker get totally wet, and then sit it in a dry windowsill, and let it get baked out, or leave it in your car for a week or two,
Okay.
and then it would shrink up, and then it might come out. I mean, there you're using the wood. You're letting the wood crush itself and do it. But yeah, this is more of a challenge. This is also a forged one. I mean, this has been forged everything out of one piece. This whole thing here, and then they forged a chunk here.
Flatten
Forged it
and roll
around. I mean, this is an amazing forging. If you can imagine, they started out with a lump and pulled all these out, pulled this out, rolled it over. I mean, if you can imagine the steps that it took to make
What is that old blacksmithing book, Practical Blacksmithing from like 1902 or something? It's a big, thick
Yeah,
reference.
it's like a couple volumes.
And they have several illustrations
Yeah,
like
they
that in
show
that
all the
book.
steps
I'm
for
sure you
making this
have
kind of
one.
stuff.
At least I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
would you, once you had this up, would you just do the same thing, set the thing
Yeah,
and hammer it
you've
in?
got this. See, did I bring more than one? So here's the handle you'd use. This should have the taper on it. Unfortunately, this is the taper which everything is sold on. So if you look, it's actually pretty close to the taper.
And you can
So-
always change a taper.
Yeah, you can always change it. This one I'm seeing has kind of. I thought I'd picked a different one, but obviously, I was with a tool dealer earlier today, and he must have slipped this in because I'd mentioned I didn't want to get this one because it has this crazy grain.
Yeah. Yeah, slippery devil.
I'm taking it back to him tomorrow.
good.
We're not going to install this
Yeah,
one.
no, definitely not. No, I just wanted an idea of how it would be done.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this is a good fork. I mean, you can see, you know, it's well forged. I don't know the brand, but
Probably Jackson Perkins, I'm thinking.
looks like it's some German name,
Oh, okay.
but doesn't
Yeah.
really.
All right, cool.
But yeah,
Nice
I mean, do you want to pop the rivet out right now, or we
No,
can wait?
no,
We already did
yeah,
that,
yeah,
popping the
no,
rivet.
Yeah, let it go. Let's just do the next thing. Broad forks and sharpening.
Okay. Did you want to? Is that these here?
Yep. You got
Okay.
soil? Got soil somewhere I can stick it in?
We'll find some. We don't work our cell anymore, so
Right.
it's not going to be easy. you
Yeah.
know, but we can find something. You know. Let's go to the garden for a second, I guess.
So I noticed that that's got round tines and not sharp tines.
My thought about making these I make these.
You know,
And
actually, I don't think we should cross from that board. I heard a crack when I was walking across the road.
just one
We'll
person
just
at
go
a
to the main
time.
bridge.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure which one of those, but I heard a little crack, and I don't want to lose anybody.
Yeah.
You did sign your liability forms, but still.
Yeah, but still. I use round because earthworms are round. I figured, you know, if anything penetrates the soil better than round, nature would have figured that out.
I noticed the sharp ones, the sharp ones stab and they don't really flip it over, while the round ones actually will flip the ground over if you take it back on it.
Right, you got something to grab.
Well, also,
Depending on
I
the
think,
soil,
I think
too.
the round has a better strength to weight ratio
Yeah,
on the
Then-
steel, which means you don't have as heavy a tool to carry.
and
around.
less surface.
Less surface area.
Everything
yeah, so
round-
it slides in and out easier.
Everything round has the least amount of surface for its volume. That's why
Okay, let's
soup
find some
cans
place.
are that way.
Maybe down
uh,
here.
Yurts.
Why do they put Spam in a square can though?
Yeah, well, for shipping. You don't waste air. You don't have any air in the box. Shipping it. Yeah. So in 2005, I had kind of an awakening, and I saw a need for having a garden, and I borrowed a rototiller and it didn't work well, and I said, surely to goodness, there was some way to do this, again, prior to the invention of the gas engine. And I pulled out my old copy of the Last Whole Earth catalog, and there was the broad fork in, and I said, hey, I'm a blacksmith, I'll just make one. So I made 10 and a website and tried to sell them, and now I've sold over 1,000 of them. And it's just started as a fun little business. But it's a simple tool. I've dated it back 500-600 years. Old Dutch tool, aerator. They had that lovely alluvial silt over there, very densely nutritious, but air and water couldn't get in it. So the tool is just designed to do that. And it makes this big opening here that you can stick your hand way down in. Water goes down there, nutrient goes down there. You can go straight through mulch. You go back a couple of inches, and this tool, you'll notice that the tines are curved, and that's so that they get in there under. But the whole point was I wanted the timing of the tine to be to about there. When you have it out to here, I designed the curve so it would go to that point. Then you move it 30 degrees and you're done. You do it again. Put that there, and it will find its way to vertical pretty much on its own. There you go. So you've created this big crack in here that's all the way down there. Water gets in, your nutrient from above gets in, and the soil is minimally disrupted. You're not interpolating the layers. The little beneficials that live an inch deep never need to meet the ones that live 6 inches deep. Not good neighbors. Nature would have made them travel. Nothing tills the soil outside of liquefaction in a major movement of the earth. Nothing in nature tills the soil. So, but this is just minimal disruption. It gets air down, it gets water and nutrient down. One of the greatest uses I found for the broad fork when I lived in Wisconsin was in the fall when the last forecasted rain was going to happen. I get out and just broad fork everything I could. Water got down in there and frost heaved over the winter. You just, everything came up inches in the spring. This right here would frost heave another 2 or 3 inches with soil that's just good. But an amazing tool.
Did that make it easier to plant in the spring then?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you just, you barely need to touch it in the spring.
So do you guys use these at all here?
We have gotten to a point where we're not working the soil at all.
Okay.
We're just like doing no-till completely. We only work the soil right where we're planting, you know? But this is probably, I'd say when you say if you're gonna work the soil, this is about the best thing you can do if you're gonna do it. I mean,
Do we need aeration
not
in this?
stirring it up at all, you know. It is compacting it. It doesn't like it, period. Not working the soil is the future of farming. You know?
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
But if you're gonna do it, you know.
Do
and
we
I
need
mean,
do we need aeration around here?
well, I mean, you need aeration, but what
This
does
is-
aeration is plants, you know.
Okay.
Plants and life does aeration, you know.
Yep. If you have a hard pan you're trying to get past, if you have just rude adobe you're trying to mix other stuff in.
Yeah.
I dug up a,
and you don't want to plant daikons to.
That kind will do it though. Jane, you got a comment?
Oh, I was just gonna say, it opens up the soil to air, and this'll require 60 parts per million to germinate oxygen.
Yeah.
And corn only requires 6, so it's adding to the weed burden.
And when you let the air in, of course, you create a feeding frenzy because the bacteria, everybody gets charged up and they go crazy.
And
You
it
know?
dries out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're not exactly a great
yeah.
advocate.
Well, see, and that's one school of thought, and you know there are a lot of people who don't go there.
No, it's true. And if they're going to do it, this is way better than a tiller.
But
Yeah.
I can see
way
there
better.
could be soil types where this could be useful, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it probably depends soil type to soil type.
Well, long term, this is another discussion. Long term, plants and life are what should do it.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Like nowhere in nature do we stir the soil, but nowhere in nature are there metal tools working it either. you
Sure.
know? They all gets work with plants and life, you know.
Yep.
I mean,
Or worms.
microbes.
Worms,
Yeah.
I guess, are moving up and down and probably creating air channels.
Oh, they are totally. Yeah, roots are all
Yeah.
that. You know.
But the worms have to have a place they can live in first, and you know, half of Detroit ain't it right now. They're planting Detroit.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
Those, you got to
Yeah.
start with something.
People are going to feel they need a tool, and this is going to do less damage than a lot of them.
Yeah.
by far.
Because if you
Yeah.
have just sod or something, you start out broad forking and then lasagnaing a little bit and then planting in. That's what we did with a brand new yard and potatoes, and they were happy.
Yep.
And I've been to areas of Holland where they've drained the sea out, and it's hard clay. It's just a solid layer of clay, which I can see why I can understand in Holland where they've got this
Right.
just packed seabed, which
Plus hardcore
nothing.
soil life people would say you could still fix that with life. You know?
Yeah.
But
I guess there was no life because it was under the ocean.
yeah, right. No, that's and
And all the salts
Yeah.
too, right?
Yep.
but that's
Yeah.
It looks like a well-made tool.
They let it rain
Whether
on
or
for
not
10
we
or
should use
15
the
years
tool
and
is
keep
another
pumping the
question.
water
Yeah.
out
Looks like it
before
does
they.
the job.
It does.
Try to
It does a
plant.
job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Turns lawns into gardens.
I'm excited about it.
It certainly can. Certainly has done a bunch of them.
Broad fork, and then I follow with spiky shoes, which break up the big chunks, and then we do chickens to actually
Yep.
mix material.
Yep. Yep.
That was stilettos, you're saying? Bring out your stilettos.
There's shoes with about 22 inch long nails on each foot. And they imitate the broad fork every time you take a step. So it's down like this angle, and then lifts up your heel. and does this broad fork.
And your thighs get to be really big, right?
So how much is that brought fork down?
Broad forks are this 185. I do 3 models. A lot of people ripping stuff up and need a lot tougher fork than what this is. And, pardon?
We need a lighter one than that even.
Well, you know, if you're broad,
Pretty big one.
if you're broad forking popcorn, you know, that's one thing. And very few people actually have that. They very few people actually have soil that, you know, that you can
We
use.
have a big broad fork to start. We need one to maintain if we want to. Like, I think it's too big for her.
I
Yeah.
got a big huge one.
I
Yeah.
I was
can
very
use it.
ambitious.
Yeah, yeah.
I will
You shouldn't
this
have
off.
something you have to stand up too high to get on.
Oh, I'm jumping on it.
Yeah, well, see, good tools weren't designed that way.
Yeah.
Good tools were designed.
Pan yard. It is a compact lawn.
Yeah, yeah. There-
It'll be dark. We'll be out here
Oh,
spotting mosquitoes.
Can
okay.
we turn on these lights?
All right, sure. See ya.
Good to see you.
Night, Jane. Microbes are going.
Do you have a single cut file?
I don't know.
We
Don't
can
know
use a
what all
double
grab.
cut, but so we've got. I can show people how to sharpen a saw if people are interested in that. I don't know what people are interested in. I can also show about sharpening axes and stuff, or maybe even both of them. We'll see. Do these lights turn on?
Yeah.
Not really.
Oh, not really.
We had a hard
Right there.
time last
Mill bastard single
Okay.
cut.
The lights did not turn on.
You want to get a longer one to go around that?
Let me get the loop one for this end.
Probably like that.
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, any of them will.
The other thing, filing is a real delicate thing. This is the file maintenance tool. It's called a file card, and that's just used to sweep out the grooves. And you push it in one direction.
You want to always use it in the direction of the grooves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't want to
Yep.
go like this because,
Yep.
you know, once again, you can damage the little tips of the teeth. So as you can see, and this is what's called a single cut file. It means it's only been cut in one direction.
Yep.
And most of the files he has in there are double cut files. Double cut files cut more aggressively, and they make a much rougher cut. The single cut file makes a much smoother cut. In fact, if you file really carefully with a single cut file, you can get just about a mirror finish, which is really handy. And of course, when you're sharpening a saw, you want things to be pretty smooth, because once again, you want to slide through the wood. So there's various issues when you're trying to sharpen a saw. The first thing is you want to make sure that all the teeth are the same height, because if you've got one tooth that's sticking way up and a bunch that are down, that one tooth is going to be doing all the work.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing you want to do to a saw blade, and we're only going to do a little piece of the saw blade, is you want to join it. And that's where you can take your file, and this is dulling the saw out, but it's a good step to start with. And we can actually look at it, and if this saw is pretty well joined, we don't need to worry about it. And I'm just looking at but it looks like we got some. And actually this saw also has a slight curve to it. So I just want to make sure that as I roll this file along, there's no teeth that are really sticking up. And it's looking pretty good. Probably you only need to join it every 5 or 6 times. I've also, if you feel the saw, you can feel I've rubbed paraffin on it. And that helps to make it slide through the wood better when you're using it. Now, maybe I should just join a little section just to show you how it's done. And ideally, we'd clamp this from below, but we've got... So I'm trying to get all these teeth to be the same height. Now they sell a little tool which is kind of a crazy looking tool. I don't know, you've probably seen them, which fits over top and kind of gives you an average saw blade, but I don't know that you necessarily need one of those. I think if you just run the file across the top. Now this saw here, if you look at it, has 2 kinds of teeth. One that points this way and one that points this way. You'll see some of the bigger saws have, and these are cutters, then you'll see some of the bigger saws have teeth that kind of spread out like this, and those are called rakers. But this has nothing but cutters on it. And you want to sharpen the cutters with the angled face towards you on this side, and then we'll turn the saw around and get the other side. And generally, I like to sharpen it with about the same amount of strokes on every single tooth. So I'll come along and I will look at this first tooth here, and I'll make sure that I'm getting the bevel right. And I like to do, I don't know, 3 strokes or something. And you want to do the same number of strokes each time and move on down your saw. And we're also going to do the same number of strokes on the other side. And if you think about it, you want all these teeth to be sharpened equally, because if you do more on one side than the other side, you're going to cut down on the wood on the saw is going to be bending sideways, and probably you've cut in a piece of wood and had a saw do that. And often what will happen is if you hit a nail or something on one side, it'll dull it out, and that causes it to pull off to the side. So I just will keep going down and sharpening, and I'm feeling the bevel, and I'm trying to get it on the bevel.
And what's the bevel? I mean, what's the typical bevel?
You mean what angle is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I never really looked at the angle. I'd say it looks like about, I don't know, maybe about 20 degrees on this.
You're just reading the bevel, basically.
I'm just reading the bevel.
feel
It's
it.
there, yeah.
Just like a chainsaw, you can feel it.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Just like a chainsaw, you can feel it when it's correct.
Yeah, and in fact, you were going to show us about chainsaws.
Mhm.
So if you want to go grab your chainsaw, and we'll talk about that. in just a
Well, I've got it here. Got the only part I need.
Okay.
You're gonna set it up in that same rig.
And I'm gonna now that I've done, I'm just gonna do these 4 teeth because it takes probably takes me about half an hour to sharpen a blade like this. But then what I'll do is I'll unclamp it and turn it around and do the same teeth from the other side. And I've got one there that I've already sharpened recently. I don't know if we've got something to saw with it.
There were some logs around.
Yeah, I can cut up one of those little logs down there. And I don't actually have a chainsaw at home. Maybe I should join the 20th century or 21st or whatever century they use chainsaws in.
You know, I kind of discovered the concept of peak oil in 2005 or something. And, I found a book that really spoke to me of that concept of, you know, it's really not going to get any easier to find. It's really, I agree with all of that. We've picked the low-hanging fruit, and I started thinking of ways I use petroleum, and I started thinking about budgeting petroleum. And I drove my truck every 20 miles. I used a gallon of diesel fuel, and I pictured every 5 miles I threw $1 out the window. And I looked at mileposts differently, and I thought, I've just driven 5 miles, you know, where's my wallet? You know, as I would drive. It was 10 miles to the grocery store. So everything I went to the grocery store, it took $4 extra to buy it. And I started to think of it as a budget. So I only get, if I had 10 gallons of fuel and I had 200 miles a month to drive, where would I go? And I started thinking in those kinds of terms and how I would use fuel differently. And I realized that using a chainsaw is probably the most efficient use of a gallon of gasoline I have ever used in my life. Was in a chainsaw, because you can create a lot of BTUs or a lot of building material with a chainsaw in a real hurry on a relatively small amount of fuel.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with chainsaws. I just don't use them.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure one of these years maybe I'll use it. So what
I actually prefer, these are cool to use. I have several great crosscut saws.
So what I've done is I've taken a board and I've cut a groove in it. Once you go to the effort to sharpen it,
Yeah.
you don't want to have to sharpen it again. If you keep your saw good and sharp, it works really nicely. And it saves you a lot of effort. And this is a chunk of dried oak, which is, I usually cut wood green. And I gotta retie that on. The mistake most people I found make when they're sawing is they try to push in really hard. All you should focus on is just keeping the blade going straight back and forth as smoothly as you can get it. The weight of the saw will cut through, and you'll go through your log in no time at all. But you know, people go sideways, they tilt all kinds of ways. But if you just keep focusing on going straight and not trying to push it through. Also, if you push really hard, your teeth will get bound up in the wood. Of course, it's better to have something that actually holds it better, like a sawbuck or something. But I can cut up an amazing amount of wood with this saw, and I've heated the house many years. And I'm sure, as I say, I should learn about chainsaws. But There's a lot of things I need to learn.
Well, you're getting older,
I'm getting older, yes.
uniquely, of course.
But I think that I think also it's good to learn how to use a hand tool before you learn how to use the power tool. Because if you learn how to use the hand tool to cut with, and then you won't force it and do crazy stuff with it. And so if you can see, okay, is this? You know, if you've got a chainsaw and you're just forcing it sideways, you know. But if you've learned to, if you've gotten all your sawing figured out with a hand tool, you're going to know how to use the chainsaw much better. In the same way with a grinder, you know, if you can hand file something great, you can use the grinder and then you can see the problems on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to let you.
So you never.
Leave that log right there. I want to demonstrate one other saw.
Okay. This
is a pull saw, Japanese style pull saw. Has a lot different way it works. It's designed, instead of working on a push stroke, to work on a pull stroke. And these things are just incredible. It's a very thin blade. It doesn't have to be as thick because you're not putting the stress of pushing on it. It's hanging in tension instead of compression. And they're amazingly sharp. And it's just the lightest touch to do the cut. Again, just letting the teeth do all the work. Amazingly accurate.
Suzuki, right?
I don't know, but this one, you see how deep it's already in that far. But these are like little razor blades, delicate little teeth, and it works on just the pull.
And it's half the thickness of this.
Yeah, so you got a lot less kerf. I use this for timber framing, for cutting tenons, and on, you know, you'd be cutting rip cuts like this to cut off tenons in wood.
The reason why this has a handle here is these actually work better, and I know it's bad.
Oh, it is.
Oh, I thought you were looking at that.
No.
But these work better also in tension. And if you have another person, each person only pulling, it worked much better. Now this one I use a lot for log cabins too, because I can unscrew the handle. And this is another great feature. Unscrew the handle, pop the rivet out. You can slip it through a tiny little crack, and you can cut out window holes and door holes.
Mm-hmm.
If you're using it one person, you can actually put the handle back here too.
It's two-handed.
And you can, excuse me, I mean to scare you, but you can actually get more control of it this way, you know, by cutting. But I use these for both timber framing and for log cabin building,
Yeah.
with that kind of thing.
There's a human pace that we've lost with things like chainsaws and weed whackers. 150 years ago, the fastest thing on the earth was a person riding a horse, you know? And at this point, anybody with $4,000 can go to the store and buy a motorcycle that will go 200 miles an hour. It is off the shelf. It's insane how we've overshot our ability to understand what some of these things are. And the handsaw is one of those things, I believe, that puts us right back in touch with the human pace. Talking about, you know, going to the woods with a saw and doing some work, you know, Dick Prenicky was the ultimate guy that did that. The guy that went up to Alaska back in the 60s and built a cabin.
Oh yeah.
I'm
actually very good at using
anyway,
chainsaws.
the thought of
I just
taking
don't
enough
personally know.
gas on an airplane to get up there to do all of that work, and the saw, you've got this is your tool. You put it in your pocket and you strap it across your back, and you don't have to carry around jugs of liquid that spill and give you frostbite in certain conditions, or, you know, whatever. The hand saw has such an important place still in the world.
Oh yeah, well
Still totally relevant.
with an axe and that saw, one day I just on a lark built about a 12 by 12 log cabin, and during the daylight hours of one day.
Yeah.
Cutting the trees, notching the logs, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I didn't get the roof on, and then I saw later on Roy Underhill did a show basically doing the same thing, showing how you could just, it's amazing, you know, you think these things take forever to do.
I remember reading all the books about the pioneers and stuff as a kid, and just not believing they'd get those houses built so quick before winter. They'd arrive, you know, in September and be inside before the cold.
You can throw up a log cabin in a matter of days, if it's not big.
Right.
And they didn't build big ones to start with.
Right.
Yeah.
They had to heat
The
them.
ones I've seen that are the center of old houses are often you know, 12 by 16 is maybe the biggest I've seen.
Yeah.
And you can also heat them easier too.
Right.
You're talking about the center of because of how people build onto them.
Yeah, that's correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you throw that up, and then a few years later, after you've actually grown some food, because probably the next thing you're going to build is a barn. And you might even build the barn first,
Sure.
because you got to store, you know, hay and stuff, unless you're going to build haystacks.
Yep. The chainsaw, this is the business end of a chainsaw. The motor just makes this thing go. This does all the work. Everybody wants to take their chain in and have somebody sharpen it. It takes two very simple tools, three here, and that's it. Just a little bit of technique. You find the angle that it needs to be cut at. You can just clamp this with the motor head on it, and you find a tooth, cut it 3 passes, 2, whatever. Go to the next one, do the next one.
Those teeth will have a tooth mark on them usually, right? On the top, you'll actually see the angle. Some of them strike a.
Oh, I don't
Have a
know.
little line on the top.
Mine
I'm not
don't.
seeing it on this.
Yeah, some of them.
And another thing which you're doing every other tooth.
Yep.
So just,
And then you'd go back over and do this one the other direction. You can change the tool. Yep.
and sometimes you can see a rivet or some other way to start it. Or
Yeah,
you,
I usually take a Sharpie and just make one
or just
black.
just put yeah, so that
Yeah.
you make sure you don't sharpen it more than once. 'cause
So, yeah, right.
it's the same principle applies to this. You want all the teeth to be the equal height so they all work equally.
Right. And then when you get that done, the other thing you have to do, this is the raker on a chainsaw, and you put that right there, and you plane that down flat. And this one was just recently done, so it's not going to require any, it just skips right over it.
And that controls the depth of the.
Yep. That controls, yeah. This is just 0.25 below that. So that lets a chip, the thickness 0.25 of an inch, shave off very
So I have a
evenly.
question.
Mhm.
I was asking a dealer about doing that, and they said, we don't encourage that because that makes them more dangerous. You should just leave that part alone.
The raker?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that way when this comes up, the tooth can't bite in at all, except what the fiber is compressed by the raker.
So
They-
the cut's actually much slower. And this is a crosscut saw blade, which is
Yeah.
you're putting it at an angle. Now, if you want to rip cut it, which means ripping it the long way, which most people don't do, but if you want to make lumber or something,
Right.
you're going to want to cut these straight across.
Yeah.
Or buy a chain that already
Yeah.
starts out straight across.
Right. And there are various safety chains and what have you. But that's, again, just with a couple of very simple tools, you can liberate yourself from having to go and take your chainsaw in, where they just clamp it in a jig and cut away, you know, a third of the usable tooth
Yeah.
They
at a
get them
time.
up really fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
They're
they're
sharp,
they're
they go
using an
quick, yeah.
electric grinder on it.
Yeah.
And of course, they want to sell you a new chain too.
Yeah. So,
I found without the safety nibs, it could break the tip of the tooth.
not unless you,
Like I took the nibs almost completely off. It was like
Well,
it could break.
The deeper you cut the rakers, the more you cut off the rakers, the deeper the tooth gets.
Right. The
more
That way,
aggressive
that's
it
what
is.
this-
Right.
That's what the kickback.
Right,
Yeah.
and the kickback occurs on the front half of the saw.
Oh yeah.
The tip, is, you can't kick back if you're cutting properly.
It was just jerking.
I mean, you're doing something wrong if the saw kicks back. Or you're doing something just, I mean, you may be
Edgy.
plunge cutting,
Edgy, yeah.
you
Right,
know, doing some fancy trick.
But by dropping the Raker's 20,000, you're getting a consistent chip that's
Yep.
coming out.
When you start seeing dust coming out, that's when
Yeah.
it's time to sharpen. It's way past time to sharpen.
And you don't want to
One of those-
grind them down too much because I think it could be dangerous too.
Oh, yeah.
Because you know
Oh, yeah.
it's really just
Yeah.
Down into the rivets to actually.
Yeah.
pop.
yeah.
Um,
And I've seen these sharpened to the point where there's just like
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Those will be
an
the
eighth of an
Norwegians.
I have some like that, yeah. I mean, I take them down too far, you know. I just keep using
Maybe it's
them.
my crazy relatives. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For a while, I thought I had to hold the measuring tool on there while I filed the rakers, and then I found it just sits on there. As long as you have the file on there, it just stays
Mhm.
exactly there.
Mhm. Yeah. So there's simple things you can do to help control your destiny there.
Well, you know what? We started at 4:17 and it is now 8:17.
You want to end it?
I think we, you know,
Okay.
we can, unless there's any questions. I wondered if that simple bow saw over there, if that was any different to sharpen.
Oh,
Where's the bow saw?
golly.
Most people just buy a new blade for
I'm
the
not
Yeah.
saying it.
Yeah,
standard. Yeah.
that's what we would tend to do.
I have sharpened these before. What I found though is that in the last 15 years or so, they've made them out of steel that's much harder to sharpen. They do this induction hardening.
So you just buy a new blade.
Just buy a new blade. The other thing which I didn't even touch on at all is setting the teeth, and that's bending them out. And on this, I have a little pair of pliers, which has a little set screw, and you can set it so you go every other tooth, and you bend it out consistently, and you flip it over and bend it out. And for softwoods, you want to have it much further out, and for hardwoods, much closer together, because the softwoods tend to grip the blades a lot more because they're a lot fuzzier and stuff like that. And the same thing true with these big crosscut saws here. You want to bend each tooth out a little bit more, which is actually not a hard thing to do either. But you can sharpen these. I mean, they're not that big a deal. With these, I like the Japanese make a little tiny triangular file that's totally parallel.
Yep.
Which is the same file used to sharpen those Japanese saws. Which wherever that saw was you had.
Now the odds are good that that'll sharpen well, because I think that blade's about 30 years old.
Yeah. The other thing which makes a huge difference that people don't realize, you get all this rust on the side of the blade and it doesn't work very good.
Right, it's going to catch.
Yeah, you get the rust off and then rub a candle on it or a piece of paraffin or something, and it is amazing how much nicer it slides through the wood.
And rust also, remember, works in pits. And when you're looking at this microscopically, if you've got pits in that nice flat cutting edge, it's not going to be a chisel. It's going to be a gappy thing that just doesn't.
It's going to be like teeth, like hacking at something.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
We've got to remember that these things are delicate cutting implements, and keep them in a place where that kind of rust won't happen.
And yeah, and you also want to try to protect this edge
Yeah.
too.
Once upon a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it just disintegrated.
Neither of us had guidance,
Yeah.
hand tools as.
Nah, you just throw it in a
youthful
box with a bunch of
people.
metal back.
So, I just wish young people had more access
And-
to that information.
And you notice how
That's why we're
Larry,
here.
you notice how Larry had his files all wrapped up so none of the files touched each other.
Yeah.
Every single file can damage all the teeth on every other file.
Right.
At home, I keep them all in a rack.
And I just took a pair of blue jeans, folded it over, and made a bunch of pockets so I can stick it in and roll it up. Because that way they stay apart from each other.
Yeah.
But any way you can do it, whether you put cardboard around, I didn't see exactly what you had around them, but I did notice yours was wrapped up.
I don't normally. I'm a shop guy. You're a field guy. You know.
Yeah, so
I'm
and
a
I'm-
shop guy. I've got everything in my world is in my
I have
shop.
a very minimal shop.
Right.
And I go out and we'll put up a timber frame or something.
Yeah.
And so it's a different kind of feel of the way I'm doing it. And I'm often, we're often sharpening. Though we do use stuff like this, I actually have a 2 or 3 inch angle iron that's actually thinner, but is much bigger to sharpen a saw with.
Yeah.
Just because there's a lot more to clamp to and has a much longer leg out here.
Mhm.
But yeah, I guess that is a different orientation because
Yeah.
you're right, I never thought about it, but I do
Yeah.
tend to work in the field a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you'd never carry 60 pounds of C-clamps to replace an assistant.
Yeah. And see, what I'll do is I actually drill a bunch of holes in my C-clamp. Then I can nail or screw it to something.
Yeah.
Which is another way, and I have holes drilled in here.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I have a bunch of gradated holes in it, which is along one face the C-clamp, which is great because you can pull little sticks through and get whatever size dowel you need instantly.
Right.
And that's a huge help too,
Yeah.
They call it a draw plate, and I mean, it's just, and I can combine 2 or 3 tools into just a piece of angle iron,
Yeah. My shop has as its centerpiece a 1-inch thick plate 4 by 8 feet as a work surface.
Well, that's a perfect table.
It
yeah.
is. I mean, I've moved it all over the country.
So 1 inch
It's so
thick,
perfect.
let's see, that would be,
It's a lot of weight.
30 pounds a square foot.
I was going to say 44 pounds
Yep.
a square
Yeah.
foot.
Well.
No, it's about 44.
Yeah.
43, 44 pounds
Yeah.
a square
4 by
foot.
8.
Yeah.
So
32
4 eighths
feet.
32, so 1,200 pounds. Does that sound
And
right?
the legs are 4-inch square 3/8 wall tubing.
Yeah.
So the whole thing weighs right at a
It just
ton.
doesn't move.
No.
But
Yeah.
how did you use the C-clamps to move that? How many C-clamps did you need to move that instead of having those with
The
premises?
the
helpers?
assistants. Yeah, the table pretty much just it's equipment operated.
I do have an acorn platen back in the shop though. A 5x5
Oh God.
table about this thick with a bunch of
are
holes in
amazing.
it. It's about 3,500 pounds.
Yeah.